Hi everyone, welcome to this set of 110 PMP questions and answers. These questions and answers have come directly from the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, making it a great way to prepare for your exam or just to brush up on your project management knowledge or information. The questions are also scenario-based. They appear as real-world scenarios, so it's a great way to see what's happening out there in the real world and how it compares to the latest PMBOK Guide. This is an absolutely fantastic way to prepare for your exam, and I cannot wait to share this time with you. I know that by spending this time improving and learning and growing, you too will pass your PMP. Let's get into the questions. You're working at Stratus Innovations, where leadership proposes the delivery of a new customer platform that will impact multiple teams. They need it to be released before October next year, and multiple experts from other systems or teams may be involved. So, multiple experts from other systems or teams. Leadership asks how this initiative should be managed. What are we going to tell them? And I can already see this. This is the definition of a project or a portfolio or a program. Let's have a look. A portfolio will include projects, programs, and operations as well. A project is just a temporary endeavor that delivers a change or business value. That's looking pretty promising. A program delivers multiple projects, so we put them together to make sure that we get more value than if we just managed them by themselves. And operations is our ongoing daily activities. So based on all of this, let's go with managing as a project, and that's the answer C. Projects are initiated to create value by producing tangible or intangible deliverables such as products, services, or other results. And we start all the way at the beginning in the Standard for Project Management, page 12, Portfolios, Programs, and Projects. What a way to start. Nice and easy. All right, let's get into these next questions. Daniel is the project manager for FinTrust Solutions, preparing the business case for a new mobile banking platform. As part of the document, he identifies expected outcomes, including increased transaction revenue and improved customer satisfaction and brand reputation. How should Daniel categorize these benefits in the business case? Okay, we have tangible benefits. Now, this is usually money and revenue and things that we can count or see or feel or touch. Both are intangible benefits. These are things that are soft benefits. So this could be customer satisfaction, usually. So revenue increase is intangible. No, that's not correct. Revenue increase is tangible. It's money. We can count it. So that's what we want. And customer satisfaction is intangible. While it's something that we can measure with a customer satisfaction survey, it's not a hard benefit. So a revenue increase to our business. So what we're going to go is with answer D, and that's the one. Tangible benefits are benefits that can be measured in financial terms, such as profitability, stockholder equity, and market share. Intangible benefits are benefits that are difficult to measure in financial terms, such as brand recognition, customer satisfaction, and employee well-being. And that's in the Standard for Project Management, page 14, examples of business value. And already we're getting through the book, which is really, really wonderful. Let's have a look at the next question. You're the project manager at Secure Bank Corporation, implementing a new online banking platform. While developing the project management plan, you identify items like regulations, organizational culture, and IT infrastructure that may influence the project. How should you account for these factors in your project management plan? And again, we're really going through the basics here, which is quite a nice way to get into it. But what do we do with IT infrastructure, culture, and even regulations? These things, are they project risks? No, that's not it. Include them as part of the scope baseline. They're not really scope, even though they're systems. Scope are things that we're going to deliver. Treat them as project deliverables. That's not it either. These are enterprise environmental factors, things that can influence our project as part of the enterprise around us. So the answer for us here is going to be letter A, and that's the one. Enterprise environmental factors refer to conditions not directly influenced by the project team that impact, constrain, or direct the project. Standard for Project Management, page 18, enterprise environmental factors. As you can see, we're getting through the standard, and the standard is more of a basic beginner's guide, so these things will get a little bit more tricky as we go along. Let's check the next question. Rose is the project manager at TCS, implementing a new internal reporting system. The PMO required her to use a standard project management plan template and follow established procedures from previous projects. She reviews these templates and guidelines to ensure consistency with organizational practices. How should Rose classify these templates and procedures? And if you're following along at home, you probably already know the answer, because what do we do with templates and procedures and ways of working? These are our organizational process assets. They're processes that are already existing in the organization. If we change organizations, we really want to get up to speed on these things very, very quickly. It's no longer just regulations or the environment, definitely not project deliverables, and it's not project assumptions. So let's go with answer C. There it is. Organizational process assets. Depending on the industry, organization and working model may include the plans, processes, documents, templates, and knowledge repositories specific to and used by the performing organization. And they're always going to be a little bit different wherever you go in the new team or a new organization. This is in the Standard for Project Management, page 19, Organizational Process Assets. Getting through it very, very quickly. All right, question 5 already. You're doing a great job. You're the project manager at BuildMax Engineering, working on a large infrastructure project. The organization assigns you as the project manager, provides dedicated project resources, and gives you full authority over the project budget and decision making. What type of organizational structure are you working in? Oh, great. They're getting a little bit more tricky already. Thank goodness. I think those other ones were a bit too easy. But we've got full authority over the project, and we have full decision making. And this is where we're looking at organizational structures. Balanced is a little bit of both. So we might have full authority over some parts, but the business might have authority over others. Project-oriented is probably looking very good. That's more of a PMO style, where the project managers have authority over the budget, they have full authority over the resources, they have more decision-making capability. Weak matrix and functional organizations, this is where the functional manager in a team might just be making a change. So they may not even be called a project manager, but they're still doing the role of a project manager in trying to make a change and deliver value. So even though those are really good and they're valuable in the real world, that's not it in this case. Let's go with answer C, project-oriented organization. These are the ones in which the project manager has a high level of authority and control over the project, including authority over the project team and resources. And it makes things easier when you have that level of control for the real world. That is something to note. The Standard for Project Management, page 22, influences of organizational structures on projects. Again, getting through these things and getting more into what projects are and where they operate and all those basics that we do need to know. Up to question 6. Liam works as a manager in the sales department at Prime Manufacturing and would like to start a process improvement initiative. Now, this is very similar to what we were talking about. Any project team members are already within his team, but Liam has no additional budget or authority. Can you already tell where this is going? What type of organizational structure is Liam working in? Is it a weak matrix organization? Yes, I mean, it definitely could be. Weak matrix is very similar to functional organization. It might just be slightly more influence of the project manager, and a functional organization is really run by the functional manager. So if it's the marketing department, it might be the marketing manager trying to make a change. They don't generally have any additional resources or funding. They have to use the people within their team. So it's not project oriented because they have a high degree of control, and it's not even balanced. So these things, as we're going down, the least level of control, but within the team itself, is the functional organization. Let's go with that one. Answer B. Functional organizations are those in which the project is done as part of an existing functional team. There's no designated project coordinator, additional budget, or resources. The Standard for Project Management, page 22, influences of organizational structures on projects. I feel like I'm reading the book as we're going. We're actually getting through this in a really nice way. So that's really great. And you're doing a good job. Let's check out question 7. Sophia is the project manager at Tech Bridge Solutions, leading a system implementation project. During planning, she performs activities such as coordination, collaboration, and applying expertise, and providing support for the delivered product. Which function is not associated with projects? Okay, Providing oversight and coordination. We definitely do that as project managers. Facilitating and supporting. We definitely do that as project managers. Applying expertise. That might be subject matter experts, but we might have other expertise like in the project management process, for example, how to deliver the product and engage our stakeholders. Performing ongoing operational support. That is our key here because, as we know, a project is temporary, so it has a start and an end date, and it delivers a change, whereas ongoing operations is our normal day-to-day work, and that is not a project. So you probably beat me to this one. Let's go with answer D, and there it is. Functions associated with projects include providing oversight and coordination, soliciting and managing feedback, facilitating and supporting performing work, applying expertise, providing organizational direction and insight, and providing resources as well. Functions associated with projects, page 22 to 26 in the standard for project management. And just in case you didn't know, the standard for project management is around 70 to 80 pages before the actual PMBOK guide. So I didn't mention that before, but that's just very handy to know. And again, it's all of these things that sets up the ways of working and the things to expect from being a project manager. And we're really getting through these questions. Question 8. An employee in the organization secures funding for the project, provides strategic direction, and helps remove organizational obstacles to ensure project success. What role is this person performing in the project? So, product owner, that's an agile term. A product owner sets the direction for an agile team and what they're going to deliver, and they do that by placing feature ideas in the product backlog. Then the team delivers on those ideas. The project sponsor, they secure funding and they remove blockers, organizational blockers, and they want to ensure the project success. That's a very good one, that one. Project customer could be very similar, but they might just receive the benefit of the deliverables. They may not necessarily have the power or the organizational power to remove obstacles or those sorts of things. So that one's close, but it's a no. And the project manager, we're going to facilitate the delivery of those things, but we're not going to secure the funding necessarily directly. So that's the project sponsor's job. Let's go with answer B. There it is. A sponsor is an individual or group that provides resources and support for the portfolio, program, or project and is accountable for enabling success. Now, the sponsor is not going to do the work, and the project manager is going to get closer. They're going to manage the team that does the work. Now, this is still in the standard for project management, but also a guide to the project management body of knowledge, 8th edition, page 274, under project sponsor. That's the best way to define the project sponsor in the PMBOK guide. So you can check that out. And it's in the standard for project management as well. All right, question 9. Roy is part of the project management team at Transglobal Logistics, working on a system upgrade project. The team collaborates with stakeholders and managers to align with organizational objectives and secure resources. While other activities are also being considered, which of the following is something that the project management team would do? Okay, key term here, project team. This is the team that actually performs the work. They're the ones who are going to estimate and deliver on these things. The project management team are at a level above. These might be the quality managers, risk managers. They might even have teams of their own in large projects. So they're really going to coordinate at a higher level. Let's see what we've got here. Provide duration and cost estimates on the deliverables. Okay, that's the project team, so that's a no. Coordinate with functional managers for demands on critical resources. Yes, so we're at a similar level, at a sideways level. Project manager is here. We've got functional managers of their area. We're on a similar level in the organization, and we're going to coordinate with these managers for demands and critical resources. So that's our management team. That's definitely a good one. Verify that the deliverables meet their quality requirements. Usually this will be the project manager and the project team, usually the quality team in the project team. Approve the final product on behalf of the customer. That's going to be our project sponsor. So similar to our project management team, it's very close, but they're a little bit above that level and set aside ever so slightly. The project sponsor has a little bit more authority there. So for us, let's go with answer B. And there it is. The project management team proactively interacts and negotiates with other project management teams, portfolio managers, and functional managers for demands on critical resources, or priorities and receipt or distribution of deliverables, those sorts of things. The standard for project management, page 29, the interaction between the project management team and project aspects. Really getting through the standard. And we're up to question 10 already, so well done. You're working with a project sponsor in the early stages of a cloud platform implementation at CSI. As you work with a project sponsor to put together the business case, they ask when the project will begin delivering value. What are we going to tell them? The project value will be realized after the project is fully completed. Now that's tempting, but in reality, when we're going through the standard for project management, it tells a different story. So it's not just at the end. So let's put a no for now. The project benefits can be realized during project execution phases. Also true, but not only there either. So let's leave it as a maybe for now, and we'll see if we've got a better answer. Project value will be realized once benefits are formally measured. That's also a tempting answer because once we've measured it, then we can really see that the benefits are there. But again, probably not the best answer because we want value to be delivered throughout the project, at the end of the project, or following project completion. Anytime we're placing a deliverable back into operations and letting them use that or letting the customers get those benefits, then we're realizing those benefits. So let's go with answer D. Value can be realized throughout, at the end, or following project completion. Standard for project management, page 41, under focus on value. And also something valuable is you doing these practice questions and learning at the same time the project management body of knowledge. We're already getting through the standard for project management, so they're going to be getting a little bit more difficult soon. But also, that's great for learning everything that you need to know for the PMP. Keep learning, keep improving. You're doing a wonderful job. You're a project manager working on a chip fabrication project at NG Micro Devices. A functional manager raises concerns about the quality of deliverables being passed to their department and wants assurance that standards will be consistently met. How will you manage this on your project? Do we need test and evaluation documents or quality management plan? Let's have a look. Quality should be verified through final inspection before delivery. Yes, that's potentially very true. So we'll put that as a maybe for now. Quality should be integrated into processes to consistently achieve target quality thresholds. That's also true. So we do want quality to be part of everything that we do on our project, from requirements through to design, through to developing the item or creating the item, and through to quality checking it itself. Let's check the other answers though, just in case. Quality should be managed separately from project processes to ensure independence. Well, I think we actually want it to be part of the project management process. So let's put that one as a no. And quality should focus on correcting defects after they are identified. Okay, now I'm starting to get a clear picture on this. This is about the cost of quality, because we don't just want to find defects, we want to prevent them, and we want to review the product to make sure that we're catching them before they reach the customer. So we really want them to be integrated into processes to consistently achieve target quality thresholds. Let's go with answer B. Okay, wonderful. Embed quality into processes and deliverables to maintain a consistent focus on achieving those thresholds. This emphasis on quality helps ensure outcomes that meet project objectives and align with the needs, requirements, and acceptance criteria set by relevant stakeholders. Now, this is in the standard for project management, page 43. So already we're getting through the standard for project management, and there's only 70 or 80 pages. It's quite a short document at the beginning of the PMBOK guide, and so this is a really good sign. Embed quality into processes and deliverables. Really wonderful stuff. All right, how did you go with that one? Raphael is managing a government mega project at SGI involving multiple vendors. A conflict arises between vendor teams over shift allocations or rotations, creating tension and affecting productivity. Now the issue is starting to affect project deliverables. How should Raphael address this situation? Okay, different teams, maybe a conflict. This could be about conflict management. Let's have a look. Do we force the vendors to follow the agreed contract terms? In some cases, we may want to do that, and we may be able to do that if there's a contract involved. Let's leave that as a maybe for now. there might be a better option. Let the vendors resolve the issue on their own. Typically, in the PMP or even in the CAPM, we want to be proactive. In fact, we want to be direct and collaborative, those two things. If you ever need guidance, just fall back on being direct and collaborative. And this answer is not it. So let's put that as a no for now. Do we facilitate discussions to identify root causes and agree on a solution? Definitely, we want to work with people directly and being collaborative. Actually, that sounds pretty good. Let's see what the last one is just in case. Assign your best team member to manage the conflict. Now that is taking a little bit of action, but it's not really being direct. So we're sort of getting someone else to do it. It's not necessarily their job. I think for our purposes, let's go with answer C. Okay, wonderful. This collaborative approach not only resolves the conflict, but removes friction that could undermine quality and productivity, fostering a more cohesive and motivated project team. This is in the Standard for Project Management, page 48, being an accountable leader. And this is the principle in action. You'll see there are around 6 principles in the Standard for Project Management. And these 6 principles make up the new PMI mindset. So it's actually quite interesting to go through, and it's a good guide for answering your PMP questions as well. So that was a good one to go through. Starting to get a little bit more tricky, but we're still in the Standard, so it's still at that basic level. You're in the planning phase for a refinery expansion project at Petrocor Energy Limited. An executive manager raises concerns about increasing staffing costs and several identified risks early in the project. What will you tell them about the cost and risk on the project? Okay, where are we going with this? It's the cost and staffing are highest at the beginning, while risk and uncertainty increase toward project completion. I remember this. Okay, in the Standard for Project Management, there's this graph, and it has, I can't remember which one it is, but there's cost and risk. Actually, I think it's the other way around, so I've done it already. But okay, here we go. Risk is at the top. It starts high because uncertainty, we don't know what's going to happen. The uncertainty is very high at the beginning, and as we start delivering things, we become more certain. So risk goes down, but cost usually starts off low. We're just planning. We don't need a lot of resources. Then it goes up as we're executing, and then it might taper off at the end as we release some of our resources. But generally it increases over our project. So let's see if anything matches that graph. I love that graph. Cost and staffing gradually decrease. That's not it. Risk remains constant. That's a no as well. Cost and staffing increase as the work progresses and drop near completion. Sounds promising. While risk and uncertainty decrease over time, that's probably going to be the one that we're looking for. Let's check the last one just in case. Cost and staffing remain stable throughout the project, while risk and uncertainty fluctuate unpredictably. While that can happen, really this chart is what we're looking for. Let's go with answer C. And there it is. And I've drawn all over the answer, unfortunately, but in many predictive project scenarios, cost and staffing levels are low at the start, increase as the work is carried out, and then drop rapidly as the project or phase comes to an end. And this is, of course, from the Standard for Project Management, page 59, Impact of Variables over Time. Let's check out question 14. Dr. Mitchell is managing a drug development project at EB Incorporated. The project operates in a highly regulated environment with phase gate approvals. Scope, schedule, cost, and risks are defined early, and strict change control with extensive upfront planning is required. Which development approach is being used? Now, you probably know this one. Again, these are the basics that we really need to know for our PMP. If it's planned up front and it's delivered in one go, and we have change management plan and change control process, putting it in the change log and taking it to the change control board, all of those wonderful things, that is our predictive approach. So that's also called waterfall. If you've got adaptive, that's where we're delivering in increments. That's also called agile. And we're also using the feedback to improve over time. We're iterating towards success. So that's adaptive. Incremental is just delivering in the increments and not really taking on the feedback. Hybrid is an approach that we might have that combines agile and predictive. So any of those things from those two approaches. Maybe we're using sprints or daily stand-ups or Kanban boards, but we're still delivering it in one go, then it would be a hybrid project. So that leaves us with answer D. Excellent. A predictive approach might be optimal when the project scope can be stabilized early in the project, and it can also be referred to as waterfall, plan-driven, or a traditional approach. The Standard for Project Management, page 61, predictive approaches. Excellent. And 61, so you're nearly at the end of the standard. Let's check question 15. Jason is leading a mobile application project at Blue Peak Digital Solutions. The team works in short iterations, delivering features regularly and refining their approach based on feedback. One person is responsible for the approved scope and its value to the organization. Which development approach is being used? Now let's check the keywords here. We've got short iterations, delivering features regularly, and looking at things based on feedback. So remember our approaches. We're delivering features, we're delivering increments, we're taking feedback at the same time. That is our agile or adaptive approach. And there it is. So it's probably going to be answer A. Predictive, that's where we deliver in one go. So that's not it. Hybrid is a combination of adaptive and predictive. Any combination could be any different things in those two approaches. And incremental is just delivering the increments themselves. The one person who's responsible for the approved scope, do you know who that is? In an agile team, that is our product owner. And they're going to set the priority by putting a list of features, which we call the product backlog, and they'll put the highest valued feature at the top, and that's the one that we're going to deliver next. So we're always delivering the next highest piece of value. So that's a wonderful way to work. That's our product owner, that's agile, and that's also going to be our answer A. Excellent. Adaptive approaches, also referred to as change-driven or agile approaches, are useful when a project's requirements and technical solution are highly uncertain, volatile, and likely to change. So that's very good to know. From the Standard for Project Management, page 63, adaptive approaches. All right, and now we've nearly finished reading through the Standard for Project Management, even though we haven't really read the book. We've just been doing practice questions. It's such a great way to learn. So let's check out this next one, and I think we're very close to the end of the standard. Ethan is working on a project at Westgate Group that will deliver a new enterprise platform. The software component has constantly evolving requirements, while the data center infrastructure is built using upfront planning and a formal change control approach. Can you already tell where this is heading? We have been through this, so I think we know the answer already. If you can tell before I can, then that's going to be really, really great. The two are brought together in a final sprint at the end. Which development approach are we going to use? Is it predictive? Well, part of it's predictive, so maybe. Is it incremental? Well, part of it is incremental or adaptive. We're still delivering small increments, and the component is constantly evolving. So the requirements are constantly evolving. That's high change, so we really want agile for that one. But because we have a little bit of predictive and a little bit of adaptive, what we actually want is a hybrid approach. Let's go with answer B. Okay, and I think you probably got that one before I did. A hybrid development approach combines adaptive and predictive approaches, incorporating elements from both. Keep that in mind. The Standard for Project Management, page 65, hybrid approaches. It's almost too easy. Now, I think it's time for us to get into the PMBOK guide, starting from the start and working all the way to the end. Again, a great way to learn. So let's see what we have. You've just taken over the project as project manager for the Orion CRM upgrade project, where many stakeholders are not available, others are disengaged, and the success criteria is unclear. This is an example of, wow, okay, project constraints. Constraints, that's maybe, constraints might be something that will constrain us from delivering in the future, potentially. Are they issues to be managed? Again, maybe, because stakeholders are not available, we could raise these as issues very easily. But then we have these, lagging indicators and leading indicators. A lagging indicator is something that has already happened and given us a result. So we've delivered something and it's increased our revenue by 10%, for example. That's a lagging indicator. A leading indicator is giving us an indication of something that will impact our project in the future. So if our stakeholders are not available and they're disengaged and we don't have clear success criteria, then really that's also a leading indicator. So sort of a constraint, but not really. It's a low maybe. Issues to be managed. Yes, we do have to manage them. So that's a high maybe, but also definitely leading indicators here. So I guess it's just, what is the question trying to ask us? We've got two indicators. So let's go with answer C and hope that that's where we're heading. Okay, so that was quite lucky, but leading indicators indicate upcoming changes or reveal trends in the project. And that could involve a lack of a risk management process, stakeholders who are not available, or poorly defined success metrics or criteria. These are all examples of leading indicators that project performance may be at risk in the future. So very, very handy to know. And here we are in the PMBOK Guide, 8th edition, page 14, right at the beginning there under leading indicators. So well done. We've made it into the project management body of knowledge. Question 18. You've been assigned to lead a new patient records system project at CHS. The business case has been approved and key stakeholders are identified. Senior leadership wants the project to start immediately and without delay. What are we going to do next? And really, in the PMBOK Guide, this is our process from start to finish as well. So it's how we're going to manage a project. So we've got our stakeholders, we've got a business case, and business case goes into the project charter. And the project charter initiates a project. It gives us access to the resources and the funding that we need in order to begin planning and executing on our project. When we're in planning, we create our project management plan. So business case, project charter, project management plan, and then we make all the magic happen. Let's see what we've got here. Develop the project management plan to define how the project will be executed. We can't do that yet. We need to initiate. Even though they want to do it straight away, we still need to go through the proper process. So let's put a no for now. Perform a kickoff meeting with the team. That's very, very tempting. But again, we still need to go through the right process here. We're looking for the project charter to get access to the resources and funding. Let's put that as a no. Work with the project sponsor to approve the project charter. That's what we're looking for. And lastly, perform a make or buy analysis to determine the resources to be used. That's a bit of a red herring answer. So what we're looking for is answer C. And there it is. The initiate project or phase process officially authorizes the start of a project and grants the project manager the authority to allocate organizational resources to project activities. Under the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 17, initiate project or phase. And that's also the first process that we go through in the 40 processes of the PMBOK Guide as we initiate and plan and execute and monitor and finally close our project. All right, question 9, nearly up to the end of this little section, so you're doing a great job. You've been hired to manage a retail expansion initiative. As planning begins, the cost of some materials rises significantly. Senior stakeholders raise concerns about the cost versus the delivered value of the project and whether it's going to be worthwhile. What are we going to do next? And one thing we need to know is when we're at the beginning of our initiative, we've got our business case, project charter, and project management plan. But what do these all do? So the business case is a cost to benefit. It's a feasibility analysis. We check the cost to benefit and see if it's worthwhile doing. So whether it's going to be worthwhile. That actually sounds exactly what we're after. Do we review the project management plan? Even though it's tempting, it's not going to give us what we want. The financial management plan. Now, anytime you hear a management plan in the project management body of knowledge or in the PMP, it's a process. So this is our process for managing the finances on our project. This is the process for managing the project overall. And it has all of our other project management plans in it, like quality management plan, risk management plan, scope management plan, schedule management plan, all of those things combined. So anytime you hear that, it's a process. Now, do we need the project charter? That gives us the authority to start the project, but to find if it's worthwhile, we want the business case. And that's answer D, and there it is. Business case is a documented economic feasibility study. And if you didn't know that one, now you do. But again, this is all the stuff that we're learning on our journey for our PMP, the basics in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition. And this is in page 17, initiate project or phase, and also the definition under page 116 under the business case itself. Really, really great stuff. Okay, last question in this section, so wonderful job. Question 20. Elijah is initiating a data center expansion project at QGS. Early planning relies on uncertain factors such as utility availability and the accuracy of vendor timelines. As Elijah documents these initial estimates for cost and duration, what will he not do? Okay, so we've got some uncertain factors. What is uncertainty? That is risk. And we might have volatility or complexity, but all of that can fall under risk. And we're going to document these things and their estimates. So what are we not doing here? Some of these might need assumptions in order to make a proper decision, but do we note them in the assumption log, these uncertainties? It might not be the best answer, so let's see what else we have. Do we add the factors to the issue log? Well, these uncertain factors, such as the availability and accuracy of vendor timelines, it's definitely possible, so they are issues that we need to manage. Do we add them to the risk register? Definitely, so we definitely want to do that one. But these ones are a bit difficult. Do we add the factors to the basis of estimates? Well, we definitely want to do that because these are things that are affecting our estimates. So that's a definite yes. Now, what are we not going to do? Make it an assumption or make it an issue? And I think for our purposes, they're more assumptions than they are issues because we're assuming the accuracy of the vendor timelines. And it's not really an issue yet because it hasn't happened yet. Issues have happened and risks could happen in the future. So we're not going to add to the issue log. I hope that's right. Okay, thank goodness. An assumption log records all project assumptions and constraints throughout the project lifecycle, including updates and status changes. And the risk register records uncertainties. Issue log records impacts to the project that have occurred. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 17, initiate the project or phase, and page 114 under the assumption log. Now, already we're getting through the project management body of knowledge. We're still starting our project, so it's still a little bit of the basics, but really, it's a great way to learn the process, and also it's a great way to learn the PMP question structure. So you're doing such a great job. Keep learning and keep improving and keep going through the PMBOK Guide in this great format as we attach them to project management questions. You're managing a large infrastructure project at Granite Works Engineering. You've conducted a kickoff meeting with the project team and multiple team leads have provided their high-level strategies. You want to put these in a document that can change and configure over time. What will you do next? Okay, can we create the configuration management plan? Well, we've got configure here and the configuration management plan, but what are we trying to do? High-level strategies. So the project charter is a high-level document. It has our high-level scope, schedule, and budget, and some milestones and the key stakeholders. So it's really a high-level document to initiate the project. But when everyone's providing their inputs, their strategies, so scope management, the quality management plan, the risk management plan, all of our project management team providing those inputs, that we collate into one document, and that is the project management plan. So I think we've got a few tricks here. We can change it and configure it, but we're not doing the configuration management plan. That's for version control. And we're not doing the change management plan. That's our change management approach. So how are we going to do our process for change control? When we're collating all of our strategies, that is our project management plan. So let's go with answer B. Okay, wow, so a little bit more tricky already, which is good to see. The project management plan specifies how the project will be executed, monitored and controlled, and closed. And we're getting into page 18 and 19 of the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, integrate and align our project plans. So we're into the planning phase of our project. Next question. A project team at Redwood Industrial Systems is preparing to acquire specialized components. They're defining evaluation criteria, contract types, and deciding whether to build internally or outsource the work. All right, so this is going to be our biggest clue here. and I can already tell where this one is going. No vendors have been contacted yet. What should the project manager do next? Okay, do we issue procurement documents and request proposals from vendors? Yes, I mean, that's a good idea. We do want to do that. We haven't contacted anyone yet, so we could go with that approach. Let's put that as a maybe. Do we evaluate vendor proposals and select the best supplier? Well, we haven't sent anything out yet, so that's definitely a no. Develop the sourcing strategy to include make or buy decisions. Sourcing strategy is our plan for how we're going to manage procurements and vendors and third parties. And make or buy decisions are whether we do it in-house and build it within the company, or whether we buy it from one of those vendors or those sellers. So that actually looks perfect. I think that's probably going to be our answer. Let's check the last one just in case. Advertise the opportunity to gather additional vendors. That's also a pretty good answer. So we definitely do want to do that. But before we do any of those things, we need to decide whether we're outsourcing the work in the first place. So let's go with answer C. Okay, excellent. The planned sourcing strategy process entails documenting project sourcing decisions, specifying the source selection approach. How are we going to select our vendors? Is it by the best cost, the best quality, maybe the best reputation, maybe the longest running in business? Many different things that we could put in there. Determining the scope of the work for external sourcing with our statement of work or our scope of work, SOW, and selecting the appropriate contracts and sources for delivering the work. These include make or buy decisions. And this is from the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 19 and 20, plan, sourcing, strategy. So as we're going through our plan and collating all these things and putting them together, we're going to figure out whether we're doing it in-house or we're buying it from a vendor. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. All right, let's check the next question. A project requires outsourcing specialized engineering work. Multiple vendors have expressed their interest in submitting a proposal, but each have different ideas on what the project is about. What should the project manager do? Now, in order to get everyone on the same page, do you know what we do? Usually there's a few different things. We've got here, clarify the source selection criteria. Now, this is for how we're going to select a vendor. Is it by the best cost? Again, is it by the one who can deliver the fastest? We get to decide. It's our criteria. But that is not going to be what the project is about. So do we perform a make or buy analysis? Well, that's whether we're outsourcing in the first place. So that's a no as well. Do we use advertising for the proposal? This is where we advertise and make sure that everyone knows that we're putting this offer out there for people to do the work. And that way people can't come back later and say, well, I didn't know about it, so it wasn't a fair proposal. Now we've advertised and everyone can see. But that's not what the project is about either. What the project is about is conducting a bidder conference, getting all of the sellers together and explaining what the project is about so everyone is on the same page. That is our bidder conference. Let's go with answer A. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. A bidder conference ensures all prospective sellers receive the same information and clarifications. Page 19 and 20, under Plan Sourcing Strategy in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, and also page 265 under Bidder Conferences. So you'll notice that there are some key concepts in the end of the PMBOK Guide. So you can always go straight there to look at those definitions. And that's really, really great. And also really great is we're getting through these questions. So you're doing a great job. And let's see what we've got coming up next. Irene is preparing a large infrastructure project at West Core Development. Different teams propose conflicting approaches for acquiring materials and services, causing delays in procurement planning. Irene needs to align the overall approach, including contract types and supplier selection methods. What should she do? Now, supplier selection methods, what's that? That's our sourcing strategy or our source selection strategy. So I don't actually see that in here, but what else is our process? Remember, anytime we see a process or a plan for doing things, it's one of our planning documents. So planning our scope is the scope management plan. Our schedule process is our schedule management plan. And for our source selection and how we're going to do that, that is our sourcing strategy plan. There we go. That looks like the one. I think that's probably going to be it, but let's have a look. Do we develop the project bid documents? Well, that's not going to tell us how we do things, so that's a no. Make or buy analysis is whether we're selecting procurements or vendors in the first place. And developing the statement of work is the scope that we want them to deliver, our SOW. So that is also a no. We definitely want answer D. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Plan sourcing strategy documents sourcing decisions and defines the source selection approach. So how are we getting this vendor? How are we managing the vendor? What is all of our process for doing that? And that's in the PMBOK Guide, page 20, Plan Sourcing Strategy, and page 141 under the Sourcing Strategy Plan, if you want to get more information about the plan itself. Excellent work. All right, we're really getting through this, so you're doing a great job. Ricky is planning a manufacturing project at Trade Corporation. A critical component can be produced internally or sourced from a specialized supplier. There is pressure from internal stakeholders to begin work as quickly as possible, and there is limited budget for additional items. What will Ricky do next? Okay, this is really good because we're really getting into procurement and source selection, and it seems like that's where we are in the PMBOK Guide. So it could be produced internally or sourced from a specialized supplier. So what do we do under those circumstances? We already know the answer to this one. Is it develop the procurement management plan? That's our process for procurements, so that's a no. Conduct a cost-benefit analysis. You know what? That's actually pretty good, but that will tell us whether the costs outweigh the benefits for certain approaches. That's actually a pretty good answer, but is it the best answer here? Do we issue the requests for proposal? Well, we're going to do that once we've decided that we want to do it internally or with a vendor. And the best way to decide is with our make or buy analysis. So let's go with answer C. Excellent. All right. And it's good that we got some clues from other questions. You'll find that when you're taking the real PMP exam, if you get stuck on a question, flag it for later, and you might get clues from future questions, and then you can come back and answer it a bit more easily. So that's a nice way to do it. Make or buy analysis is a decision-making process that gathers and analyzes product requirements against alternatives, including internal production or external purchase. And here we are in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 19 and 20 under Plan Sourcing Strategy, and page 180 under Make or Buy Analysis. And I don't know about you, but I think we've covered sourcing, selection, and procurements pretty well in these last couple of questions. So I hope we're moving on soon, but let's have a look and see what we've got. Aidan is managing a facilities upgrade at CM Holdings. The project requires standard electrical components with clearly defined specifications, and multiple suppliers are available at different price points, causing confusion and delays in the selection process. What should he do? Well, my dream of us moving on from procurements is not coming true, but what is coming true is we've got clearly defined specifications and we've got multiple suppliers at different price points. So here's what we do with our requests for proposal, information, and quote. If it's really complex and we need them to propose a solution, then we use a request for proposal. If we just need more information about what the vendor can do, so we don't really know, we're going to put out a request for information just to gather that information. Now, if everything is standard and we really just need a price, so it's pretty straightforward, we're going to issue a request for quote. I think that's where we're going here, but let's check letter A just in case. Conduct a bidder conference. Remember what bidder conferences do? That helps us get all of our vendors on the same page with what we're delivering. And I don't think that's applicable here. It's the clearly defined specifications with multiple suppliers. So we're going to issue a request for quote. Answer D. Excellent. All right. An RFQ is used when price is the main factor in deciding, and the proposed solution is readily available. And that is really handy to know. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 20, Plan Sourcing Strategy, and 248 under Request for Quote. Now, can we finally move on from procurements? I hope so. Let's see what we've got next, and maybe we're moving more into the actual planning of our project. I hope so anyway. Rena is executing a warehouse automation project at Gridline Logistics. Several modifications have been requested throughout the project, and now there's confusion about what should be implemented and in what sequence? What will Rena do next? Okay, so several modifications have been requested. Key phrases here, key words. We've got modifications and changes, and when are we going to do them? So is it something about the schedule? Well, we don't see anything about the schedule here. So do we review the scope statement? Well, the scope statement is part of our scope baseline, and this is something that's locked in place. So if we've made some changes, then it may not reflect all of those changes yet. So I'm going to put that as a low maybe for now. Do we look at the issue log? Well, that's for any issues that have come up. So that's not really about changes. Review the risk register. Remember, issues have happened and risks could happen in the future. So I think these have already been requested. They're not really something that's going to happen in the future, so it's not for our risk register. Really what we want is to review those changes in the change log and to see their order that we want to deliver them in. Once we've put them in the change log and they've been approved as well, gone through the change control process, then we're actually going to update our scope statement. So we're going to review our scope baseline and have a new scope baseline based on all of those changes. But if there's confusion, we need to check that change log, see what those changes were and when they're going to be made. So let's go with answer B. And there it is. And as you can see, sometimes there are two answers and they may not even be the best answers that we really want to take, but we need to choose the most correct answer out of both of these. So managing project execution involves leading and performing work defined in the plan and implementing approved changes to meet objectives, ensuring deliverables meet scope requirements. Now we're on page 22 of the PMBOK Guide 8th edition under Manage Project Execution and page 116 under the change log. So we'll get into this in a little bit more detail, I think, the change control process for normal predictive projects. It's really handy to know, and you'll probably see a few questions on this on the real PMP exam. All right, let's see what we've got next. You're managing a production system upgrade at Ironworks Manufacturing. During execution, your team is delivering outputs, implementing approved changes, here we are again, and tracking performance data. A stakeholder raises concerns about the consistency and reliability of the outputs being produced. What are we going to do? Okay, consistency and reliability. Is it something around project quality or the product quality? Let's have a look. Do we reassess the scope and quality plans to improve output consistency? Remember what our plans are. They're our process. So our scope process and quality process. That could work. So we're reassessing our process to see if everything is being done according to those processes, maybe. I'd put that as a high maybe for now. Do we ensure that the deliverables are produced according to the defined scope baseline? Hey, we were just talking about this, so I think this actually could be a good one. Remember all of those changes will go back into the scope statement, which is part of our scope baseline. Just quickly, do you know what's in the scope baseline? It's our scope statement, so our high-level description and our features list. Then it's our work breakdown structure, so we break it down. Then it's our work breakdown structure dictionary, so we add information on duration and cost and resources to those items. And then it's our list of work packages, which is usually the lowest level of our work breakdown structure, unless we're taking it down to the activity level, which is really the smallest level we'd ever go to in our work breakdown structure. So that is our scope baseline. Anyway, according to that, I think that's going to be a good one. Raise these concerns with the steering committee. Typically, we don't want to escalate if we can help it, so let's put a no. And complete full analysis of the quality risks being raised, also a decent option. But what's the fastest and best and most direct approach? Let's go with answer B. Excellent. All right, the managed project execution process involves leading and performing the work defined in the project management plan and implementing those changes to meet the project's objectives. Under page 22 and 23 in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, Manage Project Execution. And we're really getting through the PMBOK Guide. I feel like I'm reading it as we go. I'm certainly learning a few things here or there, which is really, really nice. And we've only got a couple of questions to go in this section, so great job for getting through it. 2 to go. Let's see what we've got. A project team at CD Solutions is developing a customer analytics platform. Midway through execution, a security officer reports unauthorized access to sensitive project data. Okay, this could cause issues with deliverables in the future. What should the project manager do first? Now, we've spoken about this a little bit. Issues have happened and risks could happen in the future. Now, this is a little bit confusing because the unauthorized access has happened, but it could cause issues to deliverables in the future. So that might be a risk. But again, if it's already happened, for me, it's probably more of an issue. So, and the first one is note it in the issue log. That's going to be a strong contender. I don't think we're going to go with risk. I'd start with issue log first. And then do we brainstorm ways to handle the security breach with the team? That is a great answer. But first, we need to note it in the issue log so that we can manage it. We're definitely going to do this, but a little bit later. Do we escalate the breach to senior managers within the organization? Again, try and avoid escalation unless it's definitely outside of our authority. So that's a definite no in this case. For our purposes, let's note it in the issue log first. Answer A. When a problem has already occurred, it's treated as an issue. The issue log is used to document, track, and manage issues before further action is taken. And that's very handy to know. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 22 and 23, manage project execution, and page 123 under the issue log. And again, at the end of the PMBOK Guide, you've got those definitions. So page 123 is where you can find the issue log definition. Wonderful stuff. You're at the last question of this section. Let's get into it and see what we've got. Omar is managing a pharmaceutical packaging project at NCL. Quality inspections repeatedly identify defects caused by inconsistent procedures across shifts, leading to rework and delays. Omar wants to address the underlying cause and improve consistency moving forward. So what should Omar do next? Okay, we've got procedures, which is all of our plans, and then we've got addressing the underlying cause, which is usually root cause analysis. So let's see what we've got here. Do we update the team's work instructions? Well, that would be their processes and procedures. That's actually a pretty good answer. So we could definitely do that. Let's put that as a high maybe for now. Implement check sheets. Now, check sheets are where we're checking off items that have actually happened. Key terms here. So checklists are like prompt lists. That would be more of a process, would be a checklist. But a check sheet is like a tally sheet. So we might be tallying items as they come off the conveyor belt, or tallying features as they're developed, or tallying defects as they occur. So for our purposes, we might use this to identify the defects, but we're not going to use it to identify the underlying cause unless we do a bit more analysis. So, it's close. I do like it. Let's see what else we have. Assign a quality lead. We definitely could do that, but typically, as we're going through PMP questions, try not to add resources or cost if we can help it. If we absolutely need to, then do it. But in this case, I think we might have other options. So let's put a no. Do we apply process analysis and improvement? Now we're starting to talk. This is the closest thing we've got to root cause analysis. And just a quick one for you. What is root cause analysis? What are the tools that we're going to use? There are two key tools. One is the 5 whys, and another one is an Ishikawa diagram, also known as a cause and effect diagram. So if you ever see these two things, those are our root cause analysis tools, but it's spelled it out pretty plainly for us here, so let's go with answer D. There we are. Managed quality assurance implements planned and systematic activities from the quality management plan to ensure outputs meet requirements. Page 23, PMBOK Guide, 8th edition, Managed Quality Assurance, and page 188 under Process Improvement. And also something that's improving is our PMP skills as we're going through these PMP questions. So great job for getting through these things. And also it's something that's so important because learning how to manage these things, manage these changes, manage delivering this value is such a wonderful skill and a valuable skill for your career and for the marketplace. So keep going. You're doing the right thing. You are managing a production system project at Forge Line Industries. During execution, inconsistencies are observed in how teams follow procedures and organizational standards. Leadership wants to identify gaps in processes and improve overall performance. What is the most appropriate action? Now, I don't know if we've touched on this, but processes, remember, these are our project management plans. So we've got processes there. But how do we improve and look at our plans? We actually do that through an audit. So quality audits are for processes, and quality control is for making sure that our product meets our customer requirements. So let's have a look and see what we've got. Increase inspections to find defects in completed deliverables. Well, that will find defects, but it won't address the performance of our process. So let's put a no for now. Re-baseline the project to address process inconsistencies. That sounds okay, but again, it's not really addressing the root cause of what we're trying to do. So let's put a no. Conduct additional testing to validate product performance. Now we're finding more defects again, but are we improving the process? That one is also a no. So we're going to perform audits to identify improvement areas. Answer D. The managed quality assurance process implements a set of planned and systematic acts and processes defined within the project's quality management plan. And again, that could be for audit, for processes, or quality control for making sure that we're meeting our customer requirements. Page 23 and 24 on the PMBOK Guide 8th edition under Manage Quality Assurance. Really great stuff, and a nice one to start us off in this little section. Let's see what we've got coming up next. A project team is missing deadlines due to inconsistent task execution. Junior members are completing extra, unnecessary work, while senior members report inefficiencies in the way that items are delivered, with defects occurring as a result. What should the project manager do? Okay, so we've got a few different ways of working. So do we need to look at our process again? Do we ask the team to swarm around the issue and solve it? Potentially. But again, if really as a project manager, we need to help guide and facilitate those problem-solving discussions. So maybe the team can swarm around the issue, but do we have a more structured approach? I'm not sure. Let's put that as a maybe. Do we implement a general training program? Yes, we could train our staff and make sure that they know how to do the things that we need them to do. Again, is it a general one or is it specific to what we need? So let's put a maybe for now. Work with the project team to create checklists. Now remember, checklists, this is a list or a prompt list for what we need to do. So that's actually quite a good answer as well. It's more like a process, this one. That actually could be closer to our answer. So let's put a high maybe for this one. Do we reassign the tasks to more experienced team members? Well, does that solve the root cause of what we're trying to do here? And I think the answer for that one is no. So we can finally mark one as no. The other twos are maybes, and this one is a high maybe. So again, nothing that really stands out too much, no great answers. We just have to choose the best answer. And you'll see this on the PMP exam all the time. For our purposes, let's go with answer C. Okay, that's really great. A checklist is a list of items or actions used as reminders, developed from historical information and lessons learned from similar projects to identify potential risks, and collaborating with the team ensures alignment and improves performance without immediate escalation or major restructuring. Okay, there's a lot to take in there. We're looking at page 23 and 24, Manage Quality Assurance in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, and page 151 under Checklists. Remember, there's more details in the key concepts sections at the end of the PMBOK Guide, so you can check out checklists in more detail in that section. All right, great stuff. We're really getting through these questions already, so let's see what we've got coming up next. You're managing a digital banking platform upgrade at Southland Financial Group. Midway through execution, conflict arises between developers and compliance officers over security requirements. You facilitate a session with the team and find a solution to move forward. What will you do with this new information? So we've got a solution and we've facilitated a session. Where do we place this new information? So do we update the risk register with the identified risks and mitigation strategies? Well, we've got a conflict. Was it really a risk? Remember, an issue has happened. A risk could happen in the future. And I don't think it really meets the definition of a risk. So let's put a no for now. Document and maintain a lessons learned register throughout the project. Well, we've got a solution. We've got information on how we handled something. I think that's actually pretty good. So let's put that as a maybe. Ensure all project knowledge is archived into organizational process assets at project closure. This is also a good answer, and we're definitely going to do this, but we're not really at that stage yet. So I think we'd probably do B before we did C. Let's see what we've got last, just in case. Develop a knowledge management plan to formalize information sharing. Oh, now that's also a very good answer. So we do want to do that. But what are we going to do with this new information? So where are we going to put it? The knowledge management plan, remember, is our process for how we're managing knowledge. If anytime we see the plan, that's just a process or a strategy. But we've got information that we need to capture for later. So I think that's going to go in the lessons learned register. Let's go with answer B. Okay, there we are. A lessons learned register records knowledge gained during a project, phase, or iteration to improve future performance for the team and organization. Under the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, pages 24 to 26, Manage Project Knowledge, and 123, Lessons Learned Register. Really well done, and really great job. We're up to number 34. Let's keep going. You're managing a data migration project at VLM. After completing a critical migration phase, discrepancies are discovered between expected and actual results, leading to rework and missed deadlines or timelines. What should you do next? Now, do we conduct an AAR with the team? Do you know what an AAR is? It's an after action review. It's the same as a retrospective. We check what did we want to happen and then what actually happened. And then we look at the differences there and how we could improve for the future. So it's our way of improving our process. If we're wanting to look at the root cause of why all of these happened, I think that is actually a pretty good answer. But let's see what else we have just in case. Conduct a risk workshop with the team. Remember, risks could happen in the future. These things have already happened, so that's a no. Conduct a SWOT analysis with the team. Now that is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We use this when we're brainstorming for risks, usually, or things that could go wrong on our project. So it's a pretty good way to brainstorm, but I don't think it's best for our circumstances here. So let's put a no, and then adjust the schedule and resource assignments. I don't think we should do that without getting to the root cause of the issue first. So let's go ahead and do an after action review. Answer A, excellent. And these are structured processes used to analyze what happened, why it happened, and how it can be improved. So a great way to start, and then we can put all those things into action later on. This is on page 24 to 26, the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, Manage Project Knowledge, and page 145, After Action Reviews, if you want more specific information on AARs. And again, very similar to a retrospective. Excellent. And question 35, you're doing a great job getting through this section. James is managing a commercial build at Evercrest Corporation. During execution, he reviews cost and schedule data and notices the project is going off track. Stakeholders are starting to notice and want an update on what's going on. What should James do first to respond to this situation? So we've got our project data and we've got things that are going off track. What do we need to do? Do we implement corrective actions to bring the performance back on track? Well, I think that's quite a good answer. We do want to do that. But is it what we're going to do first? Now, there's a key word that we need to look at. I think let's see what else we have. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty good. We'll check that just in case. Update the project management plan to reflect changes in cost and schedule. I think we're actually going to do that last. So we'll do all these things. We'll raise a change request maybe. We'll analyze the impact. And then we'll take it to the change control board. They'll approve it or defer it or deny it. And then we'll communicate that to our stakeholders and update any project baselines and then perform the work. So we'll do that eventually, but not now. Let's put a no. Analyze performance data and turn it into work performance information. Now that's interesting. And do we know the difference between work performance, data, information, and reports? Data is our raw information. So it might be the number of defects or the actual costs that we've spent, just the raw numbers and the raw data. Now, information is where we combine two of these things. So the scope over time, for example. And now we can see how we're tracking. So it's information. It's a bit more useful. And the last one is reports. So we take that work performance information and we put it into a nice charts and put it into a nice pack, and we send that out as a report, usually for our stakeholders, so they can digest it nice and easily. So it's not just in our Excel spreadsheet that we might use. We turn it into something nice that other people can use as well. That's a report, and that's how it goes. And look, I think that's actually a pretty good answer. Let's see what we've got last. Escalate the issue to the project management team to avoid further delays. Again, we want to avoid escalating if we can help it. I don't think we need to escalate in this circumstance. So let's go with answer C. That's really great. And unfortunately, I've drawn all over it, but I think that's pretty useful. Data, information, and reports. Keep that in your mind for your PMP exam. Work performance data is compared to create work performance information, which is ultimately sent as a report to stakeholders. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 26 and 27, monitor and control project performance. And just keeping this in mind, as we're going through the PMBOK Guide, it has all of the governance sections all together. So as you can see, we've been through initiating, planning, and then executing. And now we're monitoring and controlling our project performance. And all of that is done in the governance area of the PMBOK Guide. Then we'll go through other things like stakeholders and scope and resources and schedule and cost or finances and ultimately risk as well. So that's very, very nice to know. And we're halfway through, so you've done a great job. Let's get into that second half and see how we go. A project team is repeatedly submitting deliverables late for internal quality checks, despite clear expectations being defined earlier. This pattern is beginning to affect overall timelines. The project manager wants to prevent further occurrences. So what should the project manager do? Do we raise a change request for the affected items? We might do that, but does that stop it from happening in the future? Well, let's put a no for now. Perform Ishikawa analysis. Hey, remember we spoke about this in the previous questions. Remember our root cause analysis? Could be Ishikawa diagrams or cause and effect diagrams, or the 5 whys. That's the other one that you'll see or come across. So that's going to help us prevent further occurrences because we're getting to the root cause of the issue. Let's put that as a high maybe. Review the quality management plan with the team. We could do that. We're reviewing our process, so that's also quite good. Let's put that as a high maybe. And initiate an internal audit. This is where we review our process to see if it's actually working. Now, these two things, we have the plan and we could review our process, but is it going to prevent further occurrences? Really, I think we need to figure out why these occurrences are happening, and then we can update our plans after that. So that's pretty good to know. I think we're going to go with answer B. Excellent. An Ishikawa diagram is root cause analysis. It helps us identify the underlying reason for recurring issues. And that's in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 27, Monitor and Control Project Performance, and page 150, Cause and Effect Diagram. Very well done. You're really getting through these questions, and we're really getting through the PMBOK Guide up to page 27 already, and we're sort of reading it as we go. We're learning the guide and learning the way that we're going to answer questions. Really, really great. Leah is managing a highway expansion project at Granite Link Infrastructure. After baselines are approved, a stakeholder proposes a design change that may impact cost and schedule. The team is ready to implement it immediately to avoid delays. How should Leah handle this situation? So we've got a design change. It's going to impact our cost and schedule. What do we need? We need a change request, usually, even though the team is ready to implement it straight away. So we still need to go through the proper process. Let's see what we've got. Here we go. Submit a formal change request and assess its impacts. That sounds pretty good. I think that might actually be our answer. Let's check the others just in case. Review the benefits and proceed with implementation. Well, they do want to proceed immediately, but we still need to go through the proper process. So that's a high maybe. It's a pretty good answer. Defer the change until sufficient performance data is available to reassess it. We could defer it, but I think we've got a good answer here. We're going to get that data. So let's put that as a no. And do we update the project plans to reflect the proposed change and communicate that to stakeholders? We'll do that after raising the change request and going through that process. So let's go with answer A. Excellent. Once a project has a baseline, all changes should go through a formal process to assess and implement changes. Change requests should typically include information on the estimated impacts before they can be approved. So the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 28 and 29, assess and implement changes. Really great. And only 3 questions to go, so great job getting through this section. A project at EI Solutions is in progress when several change requests are raised simultaneously. One of your developers is implementing their change immediately, while someone from the business is holding stakeholder meetings to review the project impact of their change. So we've got a few different ways of working here. Where is this heading? Maybe for one of our plans? You're finding it hard to keep track. What are we going to do next? Do we review the change management plan with the team? Now, remember, anytime we hear the word plan, that's our process for doing that thing. So this is our plan for managing changes. And I think that's actually pretty good. We do want to do that. We do want to review that change management plan because everyone's got different ways of working. So let's put that as a high maybe. Do we get a recommendation from the Change Control Board? Well, the CCB, or the Change Control Board, we usually get them to approve, deny, or defer change requests. So they won't really give an input into the process necessarily. They might, but that will also go into our change management plan once they've given that input. So I think A is still a better answer. Do we review and update the change log? Yes, we probably do want to do that with all of these different things that are going on. We do want to update the change log, but is that going to solve the real cause of the problem? Probably not. So let's put a no. Approve the most critical changes immediately. Again, we could do that one as well, but that's still going to leave us with the problem that we're facing. We're finding it hard to keep track, and everyone's got different ways of working. So let's put a no, and let's go with reviewing the change management plan, letter A. Excellent. And this is where we assess and implement changes, and this happens throughout the project, because changes can be proposed by any stakeholder, and they can affect scope, plans, or documents, usually any baselined documents. Under the PMBOK Guide, page 28, page 29, PMBOK Guide 8th edition, assess and implement changes, and page 116, change management plan. Well done. So starting to get a little bit more tricky and also starting to learn the process, which is really what the PMBOK Guide 8th edition is about. So that's really, really nice. Marina is managing a power grid stabilization project at GridCore Energy. A critical update must be implemented immediately to prevent system failure, but the team is divided on the best approach and time is limited. Marina needs to act quickly to move forward. What should Marina do next? So, do we facilitate group decision-making on the best approach? Now, what is the key thing that we're trying to do here? We're divided on the best approach and time is limited. So we need to problem solve, but we need to do it quickly. And we could facilitate group decision-making. That's generally a good answer. So we'll put that as a maybe. Do we apply majority voting on the different options? Yes, we could do that as well. That's also a good way to facilitate a way forward, maybe problem solve with our team. Let's put that as a maybe as well. Do we use multi-criteria decision analysis? That's going to take a bit more time. So it's a good way to do it, and it's usually my preferred way to do things, but it's probably going to take too much time for us here. Let's put that as a no. And then, do we use autocratic decision-making? Autocratic decision-making is where one person just makes the decision to move forward. It's usually faster, but then we don't get the benefit of everyone else's input. So the team's divided. We just need a decision. I think in this case, we might actually use autocratic decision-making and just make the fast decision. Let's go with answer D. Okay, there's a few good options here, so that was actually a really good question. Autocratic decision-making is appropriate when time is critical and a quick decision is required, allowing the project manager to act decisively without waiting for consensus. The PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 29, assess and implement changes, and page 163 under autocratic decision-making. Now, I'm really learning some things here, and we're getting a few of the key concepts, a few of the tools that we're going to need for each of these processes as we go through the PMBOK Guide 8th edition. And we're nearly here at the end, so last question in this little section. You've done a great job getting this far. Olivia is managing a highway expansion project at WIC using a predictive approach. As the project nears completion, stakeholders push to release resources quickly. So we're finishing the project, they want their resources. Olivia wants to ensure proper administrative closure while meeting all project objectives. What should she not do next? key one here, don't miss these on the PMP exam. If there's a not, we want to choose the one that we don't want. So what are we going to do? Let's have a look. Do we confirm all the deliverables are completed, formally accepted, and closure criteria are satisfied? We really do want to do that as part of project completion. So let's put that. We do want that. Verify that all costs have been charged to the project. We do want to do that as well. Do we reassign or release project personnel? We do that as part of the closure process. So that's definitely a maybe. Do we ensure that all documents and deliverables are updated and all issues are resolved? We definitely want to do that. So I think we need to do all these things first, and then we can release the project personnel. So we're not going to do that until we've gone through those closure activities. So I think we're not going to do answer C. Okay, all of these were pretty good. And again, you might come across this on the real exam where all of the answers seem like they could be good answers. We just have to choose the one that is really going to be the most correct for our circumstances. So for project closure, the project manager ensures all the work is completed and objectives are met by reviewing the project management plan and resolving issues. And resources should not be released until all closure activities and exit criteria are confirmed as completed. PMBOK Guide, 8th edition, page 31 to 33, under Close Project or Phase. And we're also going to close the phase of these last 10 questions. So a great little section. And I don't know about you, but these are starting to get a little bit more tricky. But also, I'm really learning a few things about the project management process as it's defined in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition. So it's been a whole bunch of fun. And also, you're doing such a great job learning about the project management process. It's really going to help you manage changes in your career and deliver value. And the more value you deliver, the more likely you are to get a pay rise and get all of those things that you deserve in your career. And I really want those things for you. So keep going, keep learning. At Northbridge Utilities Group, a project component has recently been handed over to operations. However, team members are still being pulled back to support ongoing issues. The project manager wants to confirm what activities and items were completed during the project handover. Okay, what are we going to do next? Do we review the procurement agreements and organizational process assets updates? So the project has been handed over, but what happened during that handover? Well, procurement agreements, I don't think that's going to give us what we need. Organizational process assets might though, because that might have the templates and the processes and training modules that we gave to the organization, maybe, on the new system or what we delivered. So let's see what else we have. Do we review the quality report and lessons learned register? Maybe for things that went wrong, maybe defects, for things that we learned and ways that we can improve for the future. But that's not going to be what we did during project closure, so that's a no. Review the final report and the scope management plan. Oh, potentially. Final report will have all the information about the project closure. Scope management plan will have what we delivered to the organization. That's a maybe on that one. And review the final report and organizational process assets updates. Okay, these two are very close. So the final report is definite, and then either the deliverables that we delivered or the things that we have put back into the organization, like their processes, templates, procedures, in order to use the thing that we delivered. I think between these two, let's go with answer D. Okay, that was pretty close. During project closure, the project manager ensures all work is completed and documented. The final report, updated documents, and organizational process assets confirm closure. That's very handy to know. We've got the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 31 to 33, close project or phase, and page 121 under close project or phase, or that might be the final report actually. Because remember, in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, you've got a section at the end for key concepts. So I think we'll be looking at the final report or organizational process assets in a little bit more detail in those key concepts if you want to. Now, that was pretty tricky to start off, so let's see what we've got next. You're a project manager at SBC preparing for a commercial building project. Before defining detailed requirements, leadership wants the team to follow a consistent approach to ensure only value-adding work is being performed. What should be the next step? Okay, consistent approach is one of our plans, or it might be a process. Value-adding work, I don't know if we're going to come across this, but value-added and non-value-added, that's more of an agile term. So we might use a value stream map to figure out what's value-added in our process. Let's see what we have here though. And this is as we're defining detailed requirements. So do we begin creating the work breakdown structure to define all the project work? Well, yes, we do want to do that. So is that going to give us a consistent approach? Maybe, but it's more about actually doing it rather than looking at the process. So let's put that as a high maybe for now. Do we develop the scope management plan? There's our keyword. Our plans are our processes. So that is definitely going to help us make a consistent approach. We'll put that one as a high maybe as well. Collect detailed, valued requirements from stakeholders. We do want to do that because we're defining detailed requirements, but is it going to help us with our process? Well, not as much as the other answer options. So let's put that as a low maybe, even though it's still pretty good. Validate scope with stakeholders to confirm acceptance of deliverables. Now we can do that, and we should do that, and that will help make sure that it's what the stakeholders wanted once we've delivered it. But we'll do that at the end. So I think really first we want to look at our process, then we can go ahead and do all of those wonderful things that we outline in that scope management plan. So let's go with answer B. Excellent. The objective of plan scope management is to create a scope management plan. This process defines how the project will be delivered by establishing all of the work required to complete the project and eliminating unnecessary work that's not going to add value. So that's pretty good to know. Page 40 in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, Plan Scope Management. Now, as you can tell, we've looked at this previously, but the PMBOK Guide is separated into sections. So we've already been through all of the governance. And this is where we initiated our project, we planned our project, we managed it, and we kept it under control with change requests. Now it looks like we're starting to move into the scope section. So how are we eliciting all those requirements and then turning it into our project scope and managing that as we go through our project? So that's good to know, but also that was a nice question. So really great job. Let's see what we've got next. A new mobile application is being initiated at Crestview Digital. Early discussions reveal differing stakeholder expectations about features and functionality. As the project manager, you're asked how the team will gather requirements to ensure the solution delivers value to the organization. What are we going to do? So how are we going to make sure that the requirements deliver value? Do we develop a requirements traceability matrix to trace requirements to their scope? That's a pretty good answer. We do want to do that. So let's put that as a high maybe. Do we conduct focus groups and benchmarking? Oh, these are two good answers. To collect and compare stakeholder requirements. So that's really going to help us focus groups with the stakeholders and benchmarking to see what else is out there, to compare it to other teams or organizations. So I think that's definitely going to be a high maybe as well. Create a scope baseline to define approved deliverables and boundaries. Well, if it's a scope baseline, it's been approved, so that's going to be delivering value to the organization because we've gone through the proper process. So that's also a high maybe. I don't know about this. Am I going to be able to choose one? I'm not sure. Perform quality audits to ensure requirements meet organizational standards. So looking at the process, that sort of tackles the question as well. So all of these are actually really good answers. So let's have a quick look. Project manager asked how the team will gather requirements to ensure the solution delivers value. There's lots of differing stakeholder expectations. Now, how do we bring all of those in line? I think the first thing we need to do is in order to bring them all in line, we need those focus groups and benchmarking. That way, we've got all those different ideas and we're sort of settling it before we put it in the requirements traceability matrix, before we put it in the scope management plan. And with the quality audit, that's more of our process itself. It's not us actually doing it. This is a very tricky question, but I think this will tackle all of the keywords in the question. Answer B, I hope. Okay, thank goodness. The objective of elicit and analyze requirements is to define and document stakeholders' needs for features and functions to ensure quality and value delivery. Benchmarking is used as a technique, and business requirements outline strategic objectives, so they ensure alignment with broader organizational goals. This is in page 40 and 41 in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition under Elicit and Analyze Requirements. So lots of good options here. But as we elicit those requirements, we're going to use focus groups and we're going to use benchmarking. So a few different tools in that process. That's handy to know. All right, I hope they're not all that tricky, but we're really starting to get into more tricky PMBOK 8 questions. Two parallel project streams at NT Industries are being combined into a single initiative. One uses iterative practices while the other follows a detailed planning approach. So one's iterative, they're improving as they go and taking on that feedback, and one is waterfall and delivering in one go with predictive planning approach. After integration, there is confusion about the varied stakeholder requirements and how the team will deliver them as project scope. What should the project manager do? Okay, so how are we going to deliver all of these things that have come together from the two different teams, and how are we going to turn that into project scope? Do we create a requirements traceability matrix? Again, this is actually a very good answer. We do want to do that. That's going to show how the requirements are turned into project scope and how they're tested, and ultimately how they're signed off. So let's put that as a high maybe. Do we integrate all the requirements into a single product backlog? Now, remember we're using iterative, so we're iterating. We're not using incremental, which is delivering in increments. That's more of your agile approach. These two things combined is actually what we get when we get agile. So are we going to use a single product backlog? Maybe. I've put that as one as a maybe for now. Do we develop a new work breakdown structure with all of the information? I think yes, we're probably going to do that as well. And do we update the requirements management plan? That's our process for how we're going to elicit requirements. We do want to do that as well. Okay, so we've got 3 good answers again. Wow, these are tricky. Okay, but what we want to do is look at the keywords. After integration, there's confusion about the varied requirements and how they're going to turn them into project scope. I think, even though, look, these are all really good answers. We do want to do all these things. But I think for these 2 keywords, let's go with the requirements traceability matrix, because that specifically looks at requirements, how they turn into project scope, and then how they're tested and approved at the end. It traces those requirements from start to finish. So let's go with answer A. Okay, a requirements traceability matrix provides a structured way to track requirements from multiple sources, ensuring alignment, visibility, and completeness across the project. Now, we're really starting to get some trickier questions in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 40 to 41. Elicit and analyze those requirements, and page 131 to 132, requirements traceability matrix. How did you go with that one? That certainly stumped me a little bit. So don't be afraid of those questions. Just look for those keywords and know that you will get some similar ones on the exam. You're working with your team to gather requirements that define the organization's overall goals and intended outcomes for a new initiative. These requirements will help ensure alignment with long-term objectives. What type of requirements are these? And we do see this in the PMBOK Guide. I remember that they sort of show you what the different types of requirements are. Are they solution requirements? They could be, because we're delivering. These are our deliverables. Are they stakeholder requirements? This is what our stakeholders need from us. So that's a no. Are they business requirements? This is our organizational goals, what we're trying to meet. It's probably going to be this one. And transition requirements. This is like our training or communications, how we're making sure that the deliverables that we create go into the business and that they know how to use them and that it really sticks in the business once we deliver it. So that's a good one, but it's a no for now. Long-term objectives, let's go with business requirements. Wonderful stuff. The objective of elicit and analyze requirements is to define and document stakeholders' needs. Business requirements outline strategic objectives and high-level organizational needs, ensuring alignment with the broader organizational goals. Under the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 40 to 41, elicit and analyze requirements, and page 130, business requirements. Remembering that we've got those key terms at the end of the PMBOK Guide, so we can really get more information if we want to. Great stuff. So now we're halfway through this little section. You're doing a great job. Let's keep going. You're managing a project for a new wearable device at Fitness Plus. Users report inconsistent experiences with the device. but the root cause is unclear. The team has several competing ideas for improvements, and stakeholders want a solution that truly addresses the user needs rather than assumptions. Okay, a few things going on here. We want the root cause, and we want user needs. What should the project manager do next? An affinity diagram is going to group those ideas into buckets. So buckets with a similar affinity to each other. So all of the user interface or all of the ones that do a certain feature, for example. I don't think that's our answer here. Do we use Kano analysis? Now, Kano analysis separates requirements into must-have or satisfiers or delighters. So that is our user needs. Does it truly find the root cause though? I don't think so. So I'd put that as a high maybe. It sort of meets half of what we're after. Do we use design thinking with the team? Now, design thinking or human-centered design. This is our double diamond. You'll come across this where we diverge on lots of different ideas and then we converge on one root cause to the problem. Then we diverge on lots of solution ideas and converge on one or two solutions to implement. That's our double diamond, and it's a great way to do it. I think that really does the user needs and address the root cause, so that's probably going to be it. Do we use Pareto analysis? Remember, Pareto is the Pareto principle, the 80-20 principle. So 20% of the inputs cause 80% of the results, or 20% of the people own 80% of the wealth in the world, or 20% of the system causes 80% of the defects. Now, that's handy to know, but it's not going to help us with our user needs or root cause necessarily. So let's go with answer C, design thinking. Prototyping and design thinking emphasize understanding user needs through iterative testing and feedback. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 41 and 40, elicit and analyze requirements, and page 168 for design thinking. Now that is very handy information to have. Really great stuff. Let's see what we've got next. Stakeholders are providing conflicting input at VDS during requirement discussions, making it difficult to prioritize features. Meetings are being dominated by the highest paid and loudest voices in the room. Does that ever happen to you in the real world? Yes, of course. Working with stakeholders, it can be very difficult, and this leads to some missed requirements. And time is running out before delivery begins. How do we handle this situation? This is actually very handy for the real world too. So, do we facilitate an open brainstorming session? Well, we've still got the highest paid and the loudest voices dominating the discussion, so that's probably going to be a no. Do we conduct individual interviews? Yes, we do want to do that because that's going to get just one-on-one information. We won't be dominated by, loud voices drowning everyone else's opinions out, but we don't have a lot of time. So individual interviews takes more time. It's more time consuming. We're going to have to put a no for that one. Do we lead and facilitate a focus group? Focus groups are where we're sort of going through requirements, working through them, maybe demonstrating things with the team. We might get closer here, but it's not the best answer. What we're really looking for is the nominal group technique. This is an anonymous form of voting and brainstorming and prioritizing. So we anonymously write down all of our ideas so we're not influenced by the loudest person or the highest paid person or our manager who really likes this one idea, and we don't want to go against their ideas, otherwise we might not get a bonus this year. So we want to go with the nominal group technique, answer D. Wonderful stuff. This is that structured method for group decision making, and it's great for large groups handling controversial topics. It's more anonymous. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 40 to 41, elicit and analyze requirements, and page 184, the nominal group or nominal group technique. And we've only got a few questions to go in this section, so you're doing a great job. Let's get through these ones and see what we've got next. Jane is gathering requirements for a customer portal at BLS. The team are working well together, but have only generated a handful of ideas so far. The project sponsor would like to speed things up, and what should Jane do next? So we've got a handful of ideas. We need more ideas. We need to speed things up and do it quickly. So it's not going to be interviews. Remember, that takes too much time. Do we use an affinity diagram that groups them into buckets? It's not going to give us more ideas. It's just going to group those ideas. So that's a no. Do we use the nominal group technique? Now we could. It's anonymous voting and brainstorming. But is it going to be the best answer? It's going to take more time than brainstorming itself, where we're going to just get lots and lots of ideas from our team nice and quickly. Let's go with answer B. There it is. Here is our technique used in group settings to generate ideas quickly. And this is in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 41. We're still eliciting and analyzing requirements, which is good to know. And page 149, brainstorming if we want more information on that particular key concept. And just 2 to go, so great job. I'm certainly learning a lot about scope and requirements in the PMBOK 8 process, which is really nice. Sam is managing feature delivery for a mobile banking application at Crestview Digital. Only one feature can be added to the next sprint. Each option has a different value potential and development time. Now that sounds familiar. Sam wants to maximize value delivered within the sprint. Which feature should be selected? Okay. So $12,000 per week, 4 weeks duration. So we've got the value and we've got the time. Now, I don't know, but this looks like we're just going to need to prioritize the most value first. What we do here, there's a method called CD3, or the cost of delay. That actually specifically does this. So we divide the duration by the value that we're missing out on. So that's our cost of delaying that value, basically. Hey, isn't that cool? So I think let's do that here and see what we get. 12,000 divided by 4 is 3,000, I think. 16,000 divided by 2 is 8,000. 10,000 divided by 3 is 3.3 thousand, roughly. And 14,000 divided by 5, that's really testing me. But if it was 15,000, it would be 3 again. So I'm just going to round that because my maths is not that great. And we've got 3 3s and an 8. We want to choose the highest cost of delay. Let's go with answer B. Wonderful stuff. Requirements can be prioritized based on many different ways. Moscow, the 100-point method, the cost of delay, Kano analysis. But the cost of delay is calculated as value divided by duration to deliver. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 41. Elicit and analyze requirements, and page 187 under prioritization and ranking. So we can definitely check that out as we're working our way through the PMBOK Guide. Last question, great job. Let's get this one done, and then we're good for this small section. A project has been launched at HR Group to improve customer satisfaction within a short time frame. During planning, the team struggles to identify ways to improve the product. The project sponsor would like proven ideas based on what has worked well in similar projects or organizations. What should the project manager do next? I have a good feeling about this one. What do we use to look at similar teams, similar companies or similar organizations and their processes, and make sure that we're doing the right things and getting the best practices? It's usually going to be benchmarking. Analogous estimating is estimating based on similar features. So that's actually a good decoy answer there, but that's a no. Focus groups, we can do that, but is it going to give information on similar projects? Not necessarily. Review the product with the senior developer. They might have some ideas, but again, specifically for these two things, let's go with benchmarking. Answer A, wonderful stuff. This compares actual or planned products, processes, and practices with those of comparable organizations to identify good practices and improvement opportunities. Page 41, elicit and analyze requirements in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, and page 149, benchmarking. You've done a really great job getting through this section. I know it can be a lot of work, but it's work that is really worthwhile. It's truly going to impact your career. And these skills that we're learning, it's not just going to help you in projects. Even though projects are everywhere, you'll use it to help lead teams, to help deliver value. And the more value you deliver, the more valuable you are to your boss, the more likely you are to get a pay rise, which I know you can do. So keep going, keep learning, and keep improving. I truly believe in you, and I know you can pass your PMP. Jonah is managing a product development project at RLM. The team needs to clearly organize all deliverables and decompose the work into manageable components to support planning and execution. What should Jonah do next? And as you can see, we've moved all the way through the basics of project management in the PMBOK guide, through the governance section, and now we're into scope and eliciting those requirements, turning it into scope, and breaking it down into workable or manageable parts that we can assign to a team, which is what we're doing here. So how are we going to do that? Do we validate the completed deliverables with stakeholders? Well, we do that at the end. And just a key note, validating the deliverables is actually when we get sign-off from the project sponsor or the paying project customer. So that's a key term that we're going to need to know, but it's not applicable for us right now. Prioritize the features in the backlog for incremental delivery. We're going to do this in an agile project. In fact, the product owner typically does this. If there's no product owner, then we might do this with the team, but we're going to prioritize the features in the backlog. That's not necessarily decomposing it or breaking it down though. So that's a no. Do we capture requirements as user stories and refine them iteratively? Well, on an agile project, we break down epics into user stories. So epics are the overall features or ideas. We break them into user stories which we can complete within a sprint, or usually 1 to 3 days, small pieces. And then we refine those with the team. So that is breaking it down. Is that the best answer? Or organizing deliverables into a work breakdown structure. A WBS or work breakdown structure is basically taking the same idea as we just described from Agile, but we break it down into work packages. So both of these could be right, but I think the best one actually really defines it as work breakdown structure. Let's go with answer A. All right, the objective of defined scope is to develop a detailed or high-level description of the project, product, and value, as well as quality management plan. In predictive approaches, these deliverables should be structured in the WBS or work breakdown structure. Defined scope, page 41 and 42 in the PMBOK guide, 8th edition. And as you can see, we're working our way. We've made our way from page 1 and even been through the project management standard, which was really nice. All right, let's check the next question. Nate is managing a manufacturing facility upgrade using a predictive approach. Nate has elicited the requirements from project stakeholders and turned them into project scope. That's good. Nate wants to add more details to the work packages to ensure clarity and alignment across the team. What will he do next? And if you've already read the PMBOK guide, or if you've already done your project management study, you'll probably know the answer to that, because we're not creating a responsibility assignment matrix. That's for our resources to define roles and responsibilities. We're not performing quality control or verifying the work packages. And really, what we're doing is adding more details to the work packages. We're not developing a clear requirements traceability matrix, even though that traces the requirements to their scope, to their quality tests, and to their sign-off so that we can see what we've delivered. Really, a work breakdown structure dictionary is what we need that adds resources, cost estimates, and duration estimates, and just that extra information for each work package. So let's go with answer D. Excellent. This represents a structured hierarchical decomposition of the total scope of work into smaller manageable work packages. And the work breakdown structure dictionary adds more information to the WBS. That's in the PMBOK guide 8th edition, page 42, under develop scope structure. So that's very, very handy to know. And also a nice way to learn as we're doing these questions to help get us into the mindset for the PMP exam. At Redwood Biologics, Diane is managing a pharmaceutical product development project. That was quite a mouthful of a sentence. During monitoring, inconsistencies in deliverable quality are identified. Stakeholders request additional information on these issues to support improvements. What should Diane produce? Should she produce work performance data? Data is just the raw data, so the actual cost, the number of defects, for example. It's when we haven't really compared it to anything else. So is that applicable here? I think we could show the number of defects. That's just additional information. Let's put that as a maybe. Do we show the scope baseline? Well, that's going to give us information on the scope, but not on the issues. So that's a no. Change requests in the change log. That's going to give us information on changes, but not the issues or defects. So that's a no. What we really want is the quality report. And remember, we've got data, which is our defects, and we compare that to something else to create information or work performance information. And that might be the number of defects in a certain area or number of defects over time, or that sort of thing. And then we put all of that into a report that we can show to stakeholders so they can easily digest it. And that's the final outcome for our work performance information and data. So let's go with answer D. There we are. Monitor and control scope is the ongoing process of managing changes to project scope. A quality report documents these quality issues, corrective action recommendations, and findings from quality control activities. And that's in page 42, Monitor and Control Scope, or page 129 and 130 under Quality Reports in the PMBOK Guide, 8th edition. Now, those were fairly easy, those ones. And I think we've got a few more tricky ones coming up next. So let's see what we've got. Marcus is overseeing a bridge construction project at BEL. Several completed components have passed internal quality checks. The client is now reviewing these outputs against agreed criteria to determine formal approval. What should Marcus obtain as an input to help the client with their decision? Now, we were just speaking about this, validating the scope. When we validate it, that's when we take it to the customer to approve. But what do they need? What information do they need in order to approve those deliverables? Well, let's have a look. Work performance reports summarizing the project progress and quality metrics. Well, I mean, that's an okay answer. We could go that way because we've got quality metrics here. Let's put that as a maybe. Validated deliverables. Well, that's when they've already approved. So the project sponsor has approved. They've validated the deliverables. Change requests addressing the gaps identified during stakeholder review. We might need to review the change requests, but the absolute best thing that we need is the verified deliverables. So verifying the deliverables is quality checking. Have they been checked? Have they passed that quality check? And then they have, and they're verified. So we need those as an input so that the project sponsor can say, yes, I can see that they've been verified and they've passed the quality checks. Now I can validate the deliverables. So the input is verified. Let's go with answer C. And that's the one. The validate scope process checks processes used to achieve quality standards and formalizes acceptance of the deliverables. Verified deliverables are completed outputs confirmed for correctness through monitor and control scope. So we're checking them, quality checking them. That's in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 44, validate scope, and page 143 under verified deliverables. Remembering that we've got some key concepts at the end of the PMBOK Guide. So if you ever want to know about something directly, like verified deliverables, you can go to that section, and that's at the end, page 143. How did you go with that one? A little bit more tricky, and we do need to know those definitions. Let's see what we've got next. Priya has just taken over a nationwide fiber network project at HT Solutions, where leadership expresses their concern about how scheduled decisions are being made and controlled throughout the project. So scheduled decisions and our process. Now, what do we know when we've got our process? Let's see. They want to provide clear guidance and direction for coordinating schedule activities. What should Priya do next? Remembering anytime we've got a process for something or a strategy, it is our plan. So our scope management plan is our scope management process. It's probably going to be a schedule management plan. Let's have a look. Develop the project schedule to define activity durations and sequencing. We're going to do that, but that's not to do with our process. Establish a schedule baseline to measure performance against planned timelines. We're also going to do that, but that's not to do with our process. Develop a resource management plan to align staffing with schedule needs. Yes, well, the resource management plan is more about how we're going to manage the resources, isn't it? It's our strategy there. And the last one, this is what we want. Create a schedule management plan. And we can also baseline this with a team. So then we've got our schedule process. And if we're going to make any changes in the future, we might need a change request and just check in with everyone else to make sure that those changes are okay. Let's go with answer D. So quite a lot of extra information there, but it's handy to have, especially as we're going through the PMBOK Guide 8th edition. This one's in page 49 under Plan Schedule Management, where we create that plan, and 139, which is more information on the schedule management plan itself. So this gives us the policies, procedures, and documentation for how we're going to create and maintain and manage the schedule. Really nice to go through, and a nice trick there. Anytime we see that process, we know it's going to be our plan. You're managing a project team at OP Security where leaders in the business would like to see your plan for managing the schedule. Hang on a minute, is this the same thing again? What do you need to know before creating your schedule management plan? Oh, slightly different. Now, what is an input into plan schedule management? So that's what we're going to need to know here. Do we need to know the sequence of project deliverables? We'll need that for our schedule, but not for our process, for how we're managing it. So let's put that as a no. Estimates on project activities from the team. Again, we're going to need to know that as we develop the schedule, but not for the process, for how we're managing the schedule. So that's a no. Methods to be used for schedule compression. That is a possibility. So we might need to know that because that's going to go into our process, isn't it? So that's a maybe on that one, definitely. But probably the best is the development approach. Now, do you remember our development approaches? Predictive, adaptive, iterative, incremental, and ultimately hybrid, if it's a combination of any of those. And the reason we need to know that is because if we're working in an agile way, we might create a product roadmap and we might break down epics into user stories. We might work in sprints. And if we're working in a waterfall or a predictive way, we might create a baselined schedule, and that needs to be signed off and accepted by the project sponsor or the project management team. So the process is going to be different. In other words, the development approach matters. Let's go with answer C. Excellent. Plan schedule management establishes policies, procedures, and documentation for managing our schedule. Page 49 in the PMBOK Guide, 8th edition, Plan Schedule Management, and 139, Schedule Management Plan. Now we know where to go if we're reading through the PMBOK Guide, 8th edition ourselves, and we're also getting through this lot of questions. So you're doing a great job. Let's see what we've got next. Noah is managing a core banking system upgrade at Granite Peak Financial. After multiple iterations analyzing the sequence, durations, and resources, stakeholders approved the final schedule. What's Noah going to do next? Should he go ahead and proceed with project delivery? Maybe. That's definitely in the future. He could do that. Let's put that as a maybe. Does he review the impact of the schedule sequence on project resources? He may need to match that up. So he does need resources in order to deliver on the project. So he is going to need to do that as well. Does he add the schedule to the project status report? That's probably, he will do that, but more during execution as we're giving that to stakeholders and updating and communicating with our stakeholders. So we'll do that, but we'll do that later. Let's put that as a no. Now, these two, do we do these or do we baseline the schedule? Once we've gone through the iterations and approvals, they've already approved it. So I think for our purposes, we can now go ahead and baseline that schedule so we can compare it to the actual performance and see how we go in the future. Let's go with answer B. Excellent. This is where we analyze the sequences, durations, and resource requirements as we develop the schedule and we create that schedule model. It's an iterative process, so we're always improving and adjusting, and the schedule baseline is the output of this process. Develop schedule, page 49 in the PMBOK Guide, 8th edition, and page 138 under schedule baseline. Really good stuff as we're going through managing our scope, schedule, cost, finances, and then risk, all of these things that we need to know as part of the project management process. All right, only a couple of questions to go in this section. A project schedule at FI Group shows several critical activities requiring the same specialized engineer at overlapping times. So we've got the same engineer and they are needed at the same time for these activities. This is creating unrealistic workload expectations and risking delays in the future. We might have some risks here. What should the project manager do? Should they apply resource leveling, apply resource fast tracking? Remember, fast tracking is taking our activities that could be done in sequence and doing them at the same time in parallel instead. So usually there's a little bit of risk involved with that, but it doesn't cost us any more because it's just the same activities done at the same time. I think that's the opposite of what we're trying to do here. So we're actually trying to take ones that are done at the same time with the same person and move them so that they're not being done by the same person. and it's either going to be leveling or smoothing, I think. We could raise it as a risk, but it's already happened, so it's more of an issue. Let's put that as a no. Now, what's the difference between resource leveling and resource smoothing? Do you remember? Smoothing is where we take activities and we move those activities within their available float or their slack or their wiggle room in the project schedule. So there's a little bit of room here that it could move, and we move that activity. So we could move the activity. But resource leveling is where we level out the tasks that are assigned to the same person. So that's specifically looking at this exact scenario. Let's go with answer A. And that's the one. Resource leveling adjusts the project schedule to address resource constraints, ensuring resources are not over-allocated, which is exactly what we were talking about. Page 50 in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, Develop Schedule, and page 193 under Resource Leveling. And I'm also learning a few things here about some key concepts, how we do these things on our project, and we're also working our way through the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, which is really, really great. 2 questions to go in this section, so keep going. While planning a product launch at Nexora Labs, the team struggles to finalize the schedule. Near-term requirements are clear, but work planned for later is uncertain due to evolving requirements. There is pressure from the project sponsor to begin work quickly. What should the project manager do? Should we immediately estimate activity durations? Well, we're trying to finalize the schedule. I hope we've already done that, so we should have some durations already. Let's put that one as a low, maybe. If nothing else is good, then maybe we could choose that one. Do we develop the project schedule for approval? Yes. I think we're trying to finalize it, so that could be a good idea. So let's put that one as a maybe as well. Do we raise the future uncertainty as a risk? Yes, there is uncertainty. We certainly could raise that as a risk as well. We've got evolving requirements. So we've got 3 decent answers here, but I think the best one, because we've got near-term requirements, these are clear, and the far-away requirements are more uncertain. So what do we do in those circumstances? We actually use a thing called rolling wave planning, where we plan in detail, and then the work out in the future, we just plan at a high level. And then as things get closer, we can add more detail. And so we're always rolling and we're always planning and iterating on our schedule. I think we're going to go with answer C, and that's the one. Develop schedule analyzes sequences, durations, resources, and constraints to create that schedule model, and rolling wave planning progressively elaborates near-term work in detail while future work remains at a high level. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 49 and 50, Develop Schedule, and 196 under Rolling Wave Planning. Remembering that we've got those key concepts, so that's around page 196 at the end of the PMBOK Guide. We can always check those terms and concepts if we ever need to, which is really, really nice. Last question in this section. You've done so well. Let's do this one. You're nearly there. Great job. Raina is managing a new product launch at AC Goods. Packaging design must be finalized before mass production, but labeling can begin once initial drafts are approved. Additionally, quality inspection must wait 2 days after production finishes. What should Raina do next? Oh, do we need to figure out a schedule here? So packaging, we've got labeling, and then we've got quality inspection. So if we need to figure this out, I'm sure we can, but let's check the answers first. Do we apply schedule crashing? Well, that's going to add resources or money to bring in our schedule. That doesn't really apply to this circumstance. Do we update the activity duration estimates? I think we're really moving them around. We're not looking at their durations, so that's a no. Do we use fast tracking? Well, in this case, fast tracking is taking activities that we would do in sequence and doing them in parallel instead. Remember that one? And I don't think that applies either. What does apply here is moving things around with leads and lags. Now, do you know what leads and lags are? Leads are we're leading an item forward, closer to us. So it was over here, we're leading it forward. Lags is we've got an item over here and it's lagging behind. We're moving it back into the future So it's lagging and we're doing it later on. Anyway, that's leads and lags, and I think that's our answer. Answer B, that's the one we want. And that's the timing or adjusting the timing of successor activities relative to predecessors. In other words, what comes first and what comes next. Allowing earlier starts or intentional delays within defined dependency relationships. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 50, develop schedule, and 179 and 180 under leads and lags. Again, in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition. Such a great way to learn the book and go through the book, and such a great way to check in on these questions. You're doing a great job learning all of these things, and it's such a worthwhile skill. I already feel like we've learned some great things about scope, schedule, and even managing resources, and the way that we want to show these things as we go through our PMP exam. So great job. It's a lot of effort, but it's definitely worthwhile, and I know you can do this and pass your PMP. Elena is managing a warehouse automation project at SLG. As she monitors the project, she reviews the schedule performance and sees some differences that might require action with a basis for interpreting the current results. What will Elena use to make the required decisions? Okay, the schedule basis of estimates. Now, this is the information that we've used. It's more of our assumptions. So it's what have we based our estimates on? Is it based on parametric estimating, or do we have a commercial database? How have we actually done it? I don't think that's applicable here. So that leaves us with data, information, and reports. Do you remember the difference between work performance data? That's our raw data. So that might be raw information on our schedule, how it's going. Information is tracking it against something else. So perhaps things delivered over time, and that's going to help us make a decision. So it's probably going to be that we turn that work performance information into a report and we send that to stakeholders so they can review it nice and easily. But for our purposes, let's go with answer C. Monitor and control schedule is the process of monitoring project status to update the schedule and manage changes based on actual or forecast performance. Work performance information is analyzed data compared with the project management plan or project documents or other performance details. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 53, monitor and control the schedule, and page 144 under work performance information if you want to check that out in the key concepts section at the end of the PMBOK Guide. A really nice way to do it and a really nice way to learn. First question down, that was too easy. Let's see what we've got next. At ZP or ZP Logistics, Aaron is overseeing a complex project with multiple parallel activities competing for limited scheduling options. As delays begin to emerge, different sequencing scenarios are proposed, each with trade-offs in duration and resource use. The team cannot agree on the best path forward. How should he proceed? So we've got a few different options here. The team can't agree. How do we need to work with conflict here? Let's have a look. Do we add buffers to schedule estimates? Well, is that going to help us solve these conflicting ideas? Probably not, so that's a no. Resequence the activities based on team consensus. We could do that. So we could work with a team. We could use maybe a voting or the Delphi technique, and we could get an idea on where everyone thinks that it might land. That's a maybe for now. Do we focus on compressing the schedule using fast tracking? Well, I think that's not going to solve our issue either. So we want to figure out all of the different ways that we could go. That's a no. Now, applying the branch and bound technique. This is a new one in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition. This is actually an artificial intelligence, or basically at least using computers or simulations where we've got lots of different options and we cut off the branches that don't give us the optimal solution. So that is exactly what we're after. Let's go with answer A. And there it is. Monitor and control schedule. We're tracking the schedule as we know. And the branch and bound technique solves optimization problems by exploring and pruning those sub-problems to identify an optimal schedule that minimizes the completion time. That is one of the ways that we're starting to use artificial intelligence and computing power more on our project journeys these days. So that's really, really nice. And there's a little bit more of that in the PMBOK Guide. And that's 8th edition, page 53 and 54 under Monitor and Control Schedule, and page 150 for the branch and bound technique. A nice new one there. So that's really good to see. Okay, let's see what we've got next. Lloyd is managing a hospital construction project at CPB. The completion date has been moved earlier, but the budget cannot be increased. So we need to complete it a little bit earlier, but we still have the same amount of money to complete it in. Several activities could overlap. Oh, that's good news. And this introduces some risk. Lloyd needs to shorten the timeline while staying within constraints. Which approach should he apply? And do you remember how we shorten or compress our schedule? We can fast track it, which is taking activities done in sequence and doing them in parallel at the same time if we can. Or we've got schedule crashing, which is throwing money and resources at the problem and trying to expedite it that way. And we've got other things like resource leveling or resource smoothing, but we're not going to resequence the tasks necessarily. We're not going to adjust activity estimates, and we're not going to apply that schedule crashing. This one is more about doing them in parallel because it says they could overlap. So let's go with answer D. And that's our one. Schedule compression shortens the schedule duration without reducing the scope to meet those constraints. Techniques include crashing, and that involves adding resources and cost, and fast tracking, which overlaps activities previously planned in sequence. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 54, monitor and control our schedule. And we're working through that project process, as you can tell. And now 196, 197 under schedule compression techniques. Really nice to see and learning a little bit about the project management process as it's defined in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition. A new investment platform project is being initiated at KC Holdings. During early planning discussions, the team raises questions about how financial activities will be handled, including acceptable estimate ranges and triggers for escalation. What will the project manager show them? Well, estimate ranges might be in our basis of estimates, but remember, anytime we have a process, that's going to be our management plan. So scope management plan is our scope management process. Financial management plan is going to be our financial management process. And I think that's where we're heading. I can see one here. It's probably going to be this. Let's see what else we have just in case. The basis of estimates, decent answer, but not the best one. Configuration management plan. That's for our versions or version control. How are we going to look at the different versions of our code base or of our documents, and how are we going to configure those things? And the risk management plan with triggers. So I can see some triggers for escalation, but it's really not about risk. It's more about the finances. So let's go with answer C. Excellent. Planned financial management defines how project revenues and expenses will be estimated, budgeted, managed, monitored, and controlled. The financial management plan is a component of the project management plan. So it goes up into our overall project management plan. Page 62 in the PMBOK Guide, 8th edition, Plan Financial Management, and page 121 and 122, which is the financial management plan itself. So lots more details about what goes into it specifically, which is really, really good. Okay, getting through these questions, you're doing a great job. Let's see what we've got next. Maya, a project manager at Orion Access Consulting, is working on a project to reduce carbon dioxide in the air through direct air capture, with significant interest from large organizations who would benefit from these strategies. As Maya finalizes the plan to manage finances on the project, what should she do next? Okay, so we're finalizing the plan, and we've also got interest from large organizations who would benefit from these strategies. So what is that interest? Let's have a look. Do we note NGOs in the funding strategy? NGOs, these are non-government organizations. So this is where money can come from in our funding strategy. That's definitely a possibility. So we've got significant interest from them, and they would benefit from these strategies. We do want the funding strategy as part of our plan. So let's put that as a maybe for now. Do we send the financial management plan to the sponsor for approval? Well, we're trying to finalize the plan, so that's a pretty good answer also. Let's put that as a maybe, high maybe. Review the project charter for the high-level cost. Well, this happens as we initiate our project, not really during project planning, so we're a bit past that stage of the project charter for now. Let's put that as a no. Engage experts in the business on the costs involved. Again, I think if we're finalizing the plan, we've moved past the estimation phase for the actual budget itself. Let's put that as a no for now. So that leaves us with adding the NGOs into our funding strategy and sending the plan for approval. Well, which one are we going to do next? I think let's add the funding strategy first, and then we can send that off for approval, and then we can baseline the financial management plan. Let's go with answer A. Okay, now this shows how project revenues and expenses will be estimated and budgeted, and the funding strategy is an output of plan financial management, that process. NGOs or non-governmental organizations are funding this project. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 62 and 63, plan financial management, and 122 and 123 for our funding strategy. So we can always go there to check out those things in the key concepts of the PMBOK Guide. Really nice way to do it. Okay, that was a little bit more tricky, but let's see what we've got coming up. While planning at HN Manufacturing, Diego, the project manager, is in the early stage of a new project, so initiating perhaps, or planning, and needs a quick estimate to support initial planning discussions. There is limited detailed information available, but a senior team member mentions having worked on a similar project in the past. What should Diego do next? And I really like this one because at the early stages of our project, we don't have a lot of information, but we do have someone who's worked on something in the past. Now, what type of estimating do we use if we've got something similar? Something similar is like an analogy. It's analogous to the other thing, to the other project or the other feature. So what we're going to do here is analogous estimating. Now, remember, analogous estimating, it's really not very detailed either. So it's not going to be super accurate, but it is a little bit faster than the other methods. And we can do it because we already have someone who's worked on something similar. Bottom-up estimating is adding all of the work packages together. So we're not at that stage yet. And that's a more detailed estimate. So it's pretty good. We do that as we're planning our project. 3-point estimating is the average of 3 points, the optimistic, most likely, and the pessimistic estimates. And parametric estimating is using a parameter like $3 a meter, or 10 days to deliver to that part of the country, or 8 hours to complete a risk assessment. That's our parameter for parametric estimating. And that could be accurate, but that relies on the underlying data. So if we've got a good commercial database, or we've got good estimates, or we've got good underlying parameters, then that's going to be more accurate. So for our purposes, let's use answer D, and that's the one. Estimate costs develops an approximation of resource costs needed to complete project work, determining required monetary resources. Analogous estimating uses historical data from similar projects, applying parameters such as duration, budget, size, or complexity as the basis for estimating costs for a future project. Hey, isn't that interesting? So we still use some parameters, but it's not really parametric estimating. But we're still matching up things like the duration or budget or size to that previous feature. In the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 62 and 63, estimate costs, and page 146, analogous estimating. Really nice to see, and good to get a nice overview of those different estimating methods. Let's check out the next question. Jordan is overseeing a consumer electronics project at ADH. After product release, several units are returned due to defects, requiring repairs and replacements. These unexpected expenses are impacting the project's profitability. Jordan wants to categorize these costs within quality-related expenses. What type of cost is this? So if it's returned from the customer due to defects, now we've got conformance costs when we're conforming to our requirements. It's not really that. Prevention costs is when we're trying to prevent quality issues. Maybe we're improving the system, improving the way that it's manufactured, or including training or better processes for our staff. It's not that either. Appraisal costs is testing. So it could be testing with defects, but it's already reached our customer. So it's actually failure costs. And with failure costs, just another note, we've got internal, which is when it fails during our tests. And we've got external, which is when it fails when it reaches the customer. And that's the most costly type of quality failure. So failure cost is what we're looking for here. That's external failure costs. Answer B, really, really great. And that's when the products fail to meet quality standards, including costs for rework, repairs, and returns, especially after delivery to the customers. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 63, estimate costs 158 and 159 under the cost of quality. So that's very handy to know. Now, only a few questions to go in this little section, so you're doing a great job. Let's keep going. Lena is estimating costs for a bridge construction project at Arc Span Engineering. During planning, the team identifies potential soil instability that may require additional foundation work. The sponsor is concerned about handling this uncertainty without inflating the overall budget unnecessarily. What should Lena do? So potential soil instability, and it might require additional foundation work. Do we even need to do anything at all? But it's coming up in the future. Potentially this is a risk. Do we increase all activity cost estimates by 15% to account for the uncertainty? We could give a range or a bit of a buffer into our budget. That's definitely a possibility. So let's put that as a maybe. Do we add a management reserve? Now, management reserves is extra money on top of our cost baseline to account for extra activities to deliver project scope. So unforeseen activities. I don't think it's necessarily that, because we know about it. And when we know about it and it's coming up in the future, it's really a risk. And the contingency reserve is what we use to allocate costs for future risks that might come up. So I think it's probably going to be that one. Or do we update the cost baseline to include the additional foundation work? Well, we don't know that it's going to happen. So it really is still a risk at this stage. Let's put this as answer C, the contingency reserve. And that's set aside to implement risk responses or respond to risk events should they occur. Page 63 in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, estimate costs, and 266 for the contingency reserve. And a really nice way to learn about these things, managing risks and adding these to our project budget or the finance in our project. Really great job, and only a couple to go. So let's check this out. Marcus, the project manager at SBI, is working with the team to finalize the project budget. Different cost estimates have already been developed for individual activities, and now Marcus needs a single approved version of the budget to track and measure future performance. Single approved version, what is that? That's going to be our cost baseline, potentially. So let's see what we've got. What should Marcus do first? Should he perform cost aggregation? Well, this is where we take all of the items and we aggregate them up into a final budget. So a single approved version of the budget, that's definitely a possibility. Let's put that as a maybe. Update the financial management plan. Financial management plan is our financial management process. So we don't really need to look at that just yet. Finalize the cost baseline. Well, that does match up with what we're looking at here. So let's put that as a high maybe as well. And review the business case for the initial proposed cost. Even though that's going to give us some information on cost for our budget, that could be an input into what we're trying to do, but is it going to be the best answer? So let's put that as a maybe. Finalize the cost baseline looks pretty good. Do we need the business case first? I think we're past that stage, so let's put that as a no. Perform cost aggregation. We definitely do need to do that. So we've got different cost estimates have been developed for the individual activities. And now we need the single approved version of the budget. I think it's a bit of a trick here, but we've got the cost baseline. I think before we do that, we actually, and look at that, keyword. What should Marcus do first? Okay, that gives it away. We're definitely going to aggregate the cost first, then we can approve the project cost baseline. Let's go with answer A. A little bit tricky, and I like it. Develop budget aggregates estimated costs of activities for work packages or work packages to establish an authorized cost baseline for monitoring and control. Cost aggregation organizes estimates by work packages in the WBS and then rolls them up to higher levels such as control accounts and ultimately to the entire project budget. Wow, that's actually very interesting. Page 64, PMBOK Guide 8th edition, under Develop Budget, that process, and 158 for cost aggregation. Quite an interesting question, that one. So that was really good and a little bit more tricky, which I really do like. We do need to know the inputs and outputs of these processes to know what we're going to do under these circumstances. And last question in this section, so great job. Let's get this one done. Victor is managing a solar farm project at HEC. The team has completed cost estimates for individual work packages, but senior leaders in the organization question their accuracy and they're concerned about project delivery. What will Victor do next? And we've spoken about this a few times. How do we know the information about our cost estimates and how we came to get these estimates? Do we aggregate those estimates? I think we need to know more about how we came to get them. So that's a no. Well, it's maybe put it as a maybe because we could show them the aggregation for our overall budget. But this is more about the estimating techniques and the estimates themselves, I think. Show them the basis of estimates. That's really what we're looking at here. That's all of our information. How did we actually come to get these estimates? And that's going to be the best thing. The financial management plan, so the basis of estimates will go in our financial management plan, usually, and that's our process for how we're going to manage the budget and the finances on our project. But this is more related to the estimates themselves, so still answer B. And develop detailed cost estimates with the team. I think we've already completed that, so that's a bit of a trick. Let's put that as a no, that one as a no, and what we want is answer B. Wonderful stuff. Develop budget is the process of aggregating estimated costs, and inputs to this process include the basis of estimates. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 64, develop budget, and page 115 under the basis of estimates. And you're doing such a great job getting through this section of 10 questions. Everything that you're learning as we go through the project management process is going to help you not only in the real world, but also for your PMP exam. And while we're doing this, we're learning about the PMBOK guide, and we're also doing a great job of answering these PMP questions. Keep going, keep improving, because I truly believe that you're doing the right thing. Project management is needed everywhere in the world, and you're getting a skill that will help you for the rest of your life. Nina is overseeing a metro expansion project at AU Transit. As she controls the project, she reviews budgeted work, completed work, and actual spending to evaluate performance trends and determine whether corrective action is needed. Okay, so we're monitoring and controlling the performance of our project and our budget. Let's have a look. What are we going to do? Are we performing earned value analysis with our planned value, earned value, and our actual cost? That's actually looking pretty good. We definitely are doing that. Are we conducting variance analysis? This is where we're looking at the variance in different options. So maybe what we had planned versus the actual. That actually could be very good as well. Updating the cost baseline to reflect current financial performance. Well, we're really just reviewing these things so far. So we're not updating the baseline yet. Let's put that as a no. And reviewing the work performance report, that is a potential answer as well, because we've got data, information, and then reports. Reports are all of the information in a nice format, but we usually send that to our stakeholders. So that's probably more for later on. Even though we are looking at the different variants between these things on our project, I think the actual term in the PMBOK guide is actually earned value analysis or earned value management. So let's go with answer A and just check. Okay, thank goodness. So monitor and control finances is the process of tracking expenditures, updating financial records, and adjusting baselines. Earned value analysis compares the actual schedule and cost performance to the performance baseline. Oh, so there we are. That's actually what it is. While earned value management integrates scope, cost, and schedule baselines together. Interesting. Okay, I think I might have got lucky with that one actually. So could have gotten that one wrong. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, and that's page 64, 65, monitor and control finances, and page 169 for earned value analysis. Very good information to have. Okay, first one a little bit tricky. Let's see what we've got next. Kevin is managing a warehouse automation project at Transit Flow Logistics. He is currently identifying stakeholders and analyzing their interests, influence, and potential impact on the project. What is something Kevin will not do as he identifies stakeholders in the project? So we're in the identifying stakeholders process, which is very clear. And what are we not doing during this phase? Well, are we documenting stakeholder information in the stakeholder register? Yes, we definitely are. Are we analyzing stakeholder interests, influence, and their potential impact? That one I'm not sure. So really we want to identify them, but do we add any more detail there? Let's put that as a maybe. Do we find the individuals, groups, or organizations that think they're impacted by the project? Yes. So a stakeholder is someone who is impacted or even who just thinks they're being impacted by the project. They don't actually have to be impacted. If they think it, then we need to engage them. So that's a yes on answer B, but which ones are the no's? Do we develop strategies to engage stakeholders based on their expectations? Or do we analyze the stakeholder interests? Well, we're going to analyze them before we engage them. So I think for all of the ones, we're going to choose analyze as something we will do, and we can engage them later on. So we're not going to develop strategies to engage them just yet. Let's go with answer A. Okay, that one was a little bit more tricky, which is really nice. Identifying stakeholders involves selecting the individuals, groups, or organizations that have a stake in the project. And the process includes identifying project stakeholders regularly and analyzing and documenting relevant information regarding their interests and their interdependencies or influence and the potential impact on project success. Very handy information to have. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 71, under the process of identifying stakeholders. Really good to know. Okay, we're getting into some more tricky questions, so let's see what we've got coming up. Caleb is launching a coastal bridge repair project at HL Infrastructure. Midway through kickoff activities, a local fishermen's association files a complaint after not being consulted, delaying permits. What should Caleb do first? Key term here, first, is like the immediate next action. Do we develop the stakeholder engagement plan? Well, we do want to do that, so we'll put that as a maybe. Do we update the communications management plan? We also want to do that because we want to communicate correctly with this association, so to keep them on board. Let's put that as a maybe as well. Do we add them to the stakeholder register? Yes, we do want to add them to the stakeholder register because they haven't been consulted previously, so we need them to be on our radar. So we'll put that as a maybe or high maybe for that one. Conduct stakeholder analysis with the Fishermen's Association. Yes, we do want to do that as well. Now, hang on just a minute. We've got a lot of good options here, but what are we going to do in order? Well, let's have a look. We first add them to the stakeholder register. Then we analyze them. Then, separately to that, our process for how we're managing these things is in our communications and stakeholder engagement plans. So that's a little bit separate, but first, I think the first thing we're going to do is add them to the stakeholder register. Let's go with answer C. And there it is. A stakeholder register is a project document containing stakeholder information, including their details, their identities, assessment of expectations and influence, and all of those sorts of things. That's in the PMBOK Guide, page 71, Identify Stakeholders, and page 141 and 142 for Stakeholder Register to get more information about the register itself. Okay, so now we're going through the process and learning more about these key concepts. It's pretty good information to have. Clara is leading a Metro Rail upgrade project at ATU. Recent design changes triggered mixed reactions from regulators, local businesses, and commuters. There are many different stakeholder opinions, and Clara wants to ensure she's focusing on the right ones. What should Clara do next? Should she add them to the stakeholder register? Is this the same as our last question? Well, yes, we do want to do that. So let's see what else we have. Perform stakeholder mapping. Yes, we do want to do that. We've got different opinions and we want to make sure that we're focusing on the right ones. So stakeholder map, do you remember this one? Their influence and the impact our project is having on them. And if we're impacting them a lot and if they have a high influence over our project, we really want to engage them the most. Those are our most important stakeholders. That could be our answer. Do we organize a formal requirements workshop with the stakeholders? Yes, we do actually want to do that as well. That's also a pretty good answer. Do we create a stakeholder requirements document? We could also do that. So what's going to get to the most root cause of this question here? I think we really want to focus on the right ones. Let's try our luck with stakeholder mapping. Answer B. Okay, I think that was a little bit lucky. Stakeholder mapping categorizes stakeholders to support relationship building and engagement. So it is good to go through this, and it is good to learn and teach this, because you will need that for your PMP exam at least. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 71, identify stakeholders, and page 200 for stakeholder mapping. Very handy to know. Okay, let's see what we've got coming up. You're currently planning for a city redevelopment project at New Horizon Incorporated. You review how key stakeholders are responding and determine the degree of involvement needed for project success. Something that we've been doing over the last couple of questions. You then identify gaps to guide your stakeholder strategies. What will you use to represent this information? Okay, we've got some gaps. We want to represent them. How do we do that? Do we show the project risk register, listing gaps in engagement? Remember, risks are things that haven't happened, and I think we're really looking at our stakeholder process and how we're managing stakeholders. So let's put that as a no. The communications management plan, that's our plan for how we're going to communicate with our stakeholders. That's going to be pretty good, but does it show the gaps? I'm not sure. I don't think so. So let's put that as a no. The stakeholder register with classifications. This is going to show who we want to engage the most, but does it show the gaps? Again, that's a no. So the stakeholder engagement assessment matrix. Do you know what this one is? This is where we've got all of our stakeholders, and are they unaware, resistant, neutral, supportive, or leading? And what are they currently? And where do we desire them to be? So maybe Billy is currently unaware, and we desire him to be supportive on our project, to be engaged. So that is going to show a gap. Let's go with answer C. There it is. Plan stakeholder engagement develops strategies to engage stakeholders based on their needs and expectations. And a stakeholder engagement assessment matrix compares the current and desired engagement levels, such as unaware, resistant, neutral, supportive, or leading. Very handy to know. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 71 and 72, and page 200 for the stakeholder engagement assessment matrix. Well done on getting through that one. These stakeholder questions have been a little bit trickier, which is nice to see. Let's see if this one is any different. Nadia is initiating the next phase of a hospital expansion project at CH Systems. Early in planning, Nadia receives complaints from some stakeholders that they're not being involved. Some parts of the business were not engaged for the most recent release, resulting in dissatisfied users. What will Nadia do next? So engagement and communication, maybe. Let's see. Do we identify stakeholders who can be more involved in the project? Well, we need to identify stakeholders, but sometimes we don't have a choice. We just have to note them down and make sure we're engaging them in the right ways. So let's put that as a no. Create and update the stakeholder register. Yes, we do want that because that's going to help us identify the stakeholders. But are we past that stage? Now we're at the stage of engaging them. So I think we might be past it. Let's put that as a no. Do we add and update stakeholder engagement activities? Yes, we do want to engage our stakeholders in the right way. But how do we know that that is the right way? So that's definitely a high maybe. It's definitely touching on the right keywords there. The last one is create the communications management plan. That's going to be our process for how we communicate with our stakeholders. And if they're not getting the right messages or not being communicated with in the right ways, I think that's probably going to be our answer. That's going to be our process. Let's go with answer D. Okay, very nice. Plan communications management defines how to communicate with stakeholders and aligns with stakeholder engagement for consistency. The communications management plan describes how, when, and by whom information will be administered and disseminated throughout the project. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 72 and 73 for plan communications management, and 117 and 118 for the communications management plan. Very nice. All right, again, stakeholder engagement and communications, they really go hand in hand in the PMBOK Guide, so that's good to know. Isabel is planning the rollout of a digital banking project at Zenith Trust Bank. Multiple teams are receiving the benefit of the rollout and will need product information and training. But stakeholders in those areas frequently avoid updates and provide minimal feedback. What should Isabel do? Now, if they're doing these things, it sounds like they're not engaged, or we're not engaging them in the right ways. So do we schedule more frequent status meetings? Well, we could do that, but will that address the real cause of the problem? It might do it initially, but maybe not long term. So let's put a maybe for now. Do we update the stakeholder engagement plan? We could do that, but what are we going to update it with? We haven't really done any analysis yet, so let's put that as a maybe as well. We do want to obviously engage them in better ways, so we definitely do want to do that. Do we conduct a communication styles assessment? Yes, we definitely want to do that because that's going to figure out how they want to be communicated with. If they're not engaged, they need that product information, but they're just not being communicated with in the right ways. I think this could be a good answer. Let's put that as a high maybe. And the last one, send formal reports to the receiving team. Again, we could do those things. All of these are decent answers. More meeting, more information, more communication, more engagement, but doing it in the way that suits our stakeholders is probably going to be the best answer here. Let's go with answer C. Wonderful stuff. A communication styles assessment evaluates preferred communication methods, formats, and content for stakeholders. It's often used with unsupportive stakeholders. Very good. That's exactly our scenario. And it might follow a stakeholder engagement assessment afterwards to identify gaps and determine the need for tailored communication activities. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 73. Plan communications management. That's our process. And page 155, communication styles assessment, if you want more information on that specifically. All right, only a few questions to go in this little section. So you've done a great job getting through it. Let's do these last couple. We're working through stakeholders and communications. You're managing an enterprise resource planning project with stakeholders in the US, India, and Germany. Communication styles differ. Requirements have been missed, and there are frequent misunderstandings across the team. What should the project manager do next? Okay, so different communication styles, different ways of working. Do we establish ground rules for meetings with consistent communication expectations? That's a pretty good answer. We definitely do want to do that. So that might be our team charter. We workshop that with the team. Or do we apply cultural awareness to adjust engagement approaches? Now, we've got people in different countries and we've got different communication styles. So that's also a pretty good answer. Let's put that as a high maybe. Use observation and conversation to better understand stakeholder concerns. We could go directly to the source and work with them to figure everything out. That's also a pretty good answer. Let's put that as a high maybe as well. Increase the frequency of status reports to ensure all stakeholders receive the same information. Well, that's giving more information without addressing the real cause. So let's put that one as a no. Okay, we've got 3 good answers. What are we going to do first? We can establish ground rules, but we want to do that after we've looked at the cultural awareness. And using observation and conversation, we might do that, but we've got people all over in different countries. It's not going to be easy to do that. And really, we want to apply our cultural awareness first before we go and observe and converse with all these people. So a few tricky ones here, a few good answers, but I think maybe the best one, let's go with answer B. Okay, managed stakeholder engagement involves communicating and working with stakeholders to increase support and minimize resistance. Conflict is inevitable on a project, and it can arise from different things like scarce resources, scheduling priorities, or different working styles. Ground rules can help, but cultural awareness is most appropriate here. So we had that different countries. That was the key that gave it away. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 74, under Manage Stakeholder Engagement. All right, last 2 questions in this section. Well done for getting this far. Let's see what we've got next. You're managing the Helios Energy Rollout Project. Several stakeholders complain they're not being updated with the latest project information, despite you sending the project report each week. What are we going to do next? Okay, sending it out is a push approach. We're pushing it out to people. That could be with emails or giving that information to people. The other way we could do it is a pull approach. where we have it in a web portal or on a web page or even on our team wall or information radiator, and people can gather that information at their own discretion. They can get it anytime they need. So that's the opposite of what we're currently doing. Maybe that's what we need to do. Let's see what we've got next, just in case. Arrange a stakeholder meeting to ensure everyone is informed. Yes, we do want to do that. Now again, if we arrange a stakeholder meeting, just one, is that going to solve the real cause of our problem here? Probably not on a long-term basis. So that sounds okay, but let's put a no. Update the stakeholder register with the information they need. Stakeholder register has information on our stakeholders and their classifications, but it doesn't have the information that they need. So the best answer, by eliminating these other ones, I think, let's go with answer A, the pull approach. There we are. Managed communications ensures timely collection, creation and distribution, and management of project information. And push and pull communication methods are part of this process. So that's good to know. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, under page 75, Manage Communications. Really great work. Now we're up to the last question in this section. So let's get through this one. You've done such a great job. Javier is overseeing stakeholder involvement for a rail expansion project at Stanton Group, where stakeholder participation has continued to decline over the past few weeks. Wow, we've had so much stakeholder and communication things in this section, so I think we're going to be very good at this by now. He's worried that key decisions are not being made and will soon affect project delivery. What should Javier do next? Okay, so participation has continued to decline. Key decisions are not being made. How are we going to address this? Do we raise the issue with each stakeholder's manager? Well, it could be raised as an issue, but as a project manager, remember, we don't want to hand off our work to other people. We need to manage those issues. So that sounds okay, but that's the giveaway. We don't want to pass it off to their managers. We want to do that. So that's a no. Do we hold an AAR? Do you remember what an AAR is? It's an after action review, similar to a retrospective. So we can use this to problem solve with our team. It sounds okay, but really we do this after we've delivered something or at the end of a sprint or once we have a break in the work. It's after the action. So it sounds okay. Let's put it as a maybe. Do we update the stakeholder engagement plan? That's how we're going to engage our stakeholders. Yes, we could do that, but what are we going to update that plan with? We need some information first, I think. So let's put that as a no. We'll do that later. Now that leaves us with RCA, workshop with stakeholders. What is RCA? That is root cause analysis. So this could be our Ishikawa diagrams or 5 whys, or even just problem solving or process improvement. We can hold that RCA workshop with the stakeholders to find the root cause and why things are going wrong. So let's go with answer A. Wonderful stuff. Monitor stakeholder engagement, assesses the effectiveness of engagement efforts, identifies adjustments, and refines those strategies. Page 73 and 76 in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, monitor stakeholder engagement, and page 196, root cause analysis. You've done such a great job getting through this section. I truly believe with all this work and effort that you're putting in learning the PMBOK Guide, you too can pass your PMP, and it's a wonderful way to help boost your career and learn the things you need to deliver value. You are managing the Apex Financial Systems Upgrade project, a confidential project update containing sensitive budget and staffing information was accidentally distributed to a broader stakeholder group than intended. What will you do next? So something around communications? Well, do we update the communications management plan? Potentially. Remember, anytime we've got a plan, that's our process for how we are managing communications. So we could definitely do that. Let's put that as a high maybe for now. Do we update the stakeholder engagement plan? Well, I think it's more around communications. So this one's a low maybe, even though stakeholder engagement and communications do go hand in hand. I think let's put that as a no. Do we raise it in the issue log? Well, has it happened? Yes. So it is an issue. Remember, risks are something that happen in the future or could happen. They haven't happened yet, but an issue has happened and this one has happened. So I think that's also a pretty good answer. Do we raise a formal change request to modify project reporting deliverables? We may need to do that if our communications management plan is baselined, but we won't do that first. I think we'll do some other things first. So let's put that as a no. Do we raise the issue or do we update the communications management plan? I think first we're going to raise the issue and manage that because we want to fix what has actually happened. Then we can update our process, and then we may need to go through a change request for that if it's a baselined document. Let's go with answer C. Excellent. Monitor communications ensures project and stakeholder information needs are met. Outputs of this process include updating the issue log, there you go, and the communications management plan. Oh, so they both could be correct. As this is sensitive information, it is an issue that should be addressed first. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 77, monitor communications. So as you can see, we're working our way through the PMBOK Guide in a really nice way, getting through the communications and stakeholder engagement sections. Let's see what we've got coming up. You're initiating a wind farm project at Peak Energy Solutions. As the team begins working together, you notice many mistakes and a lot of rework on deliverables. Team members blame each other for not doing their job correctly. What should you do? Do we create a performance improvement plan for the core team members? Well, that can seem like a good idea, especially in the real world. Sometimes that may happen. But on the PMP exam, we want to be more collaborative. We want to be direct and collaborative if we can help it. And I think we might have a better option than this. So let's put that as a low maybe. Do we workshop the resource management plan with the team? Now, remember it's a plan, so it's our resource management process, how we're managing the resources on our project. I don't know if we'll do that with the team. This is more of us as a project manager, how we're going to manage it. So let's put that as a no. Do we workshop? This one looks good. The team charter with the team. Now, do you know what the team charter is? It's our ways of working. So it's our roles and responsibilities, who we will work with, how we'll manage conflict and how we'll resolve that, and who's responsible for what. Maybe any team meetings and those sorts of things. Basically our ways of working. And we can workshop that with the team, make sure we get everyone's inputs so everyone feels involved. I really like that one. So that's definitely going to be a good answer. Do we interview each team member to get a better understanding of their needs? Now we could do that. That's going to take a little bit more time. And if we do it with the team, we workshop the team charter, then everyone can get involved and discuss at the same time. Let's go with answer C. Wonderful. Plan resource management establishes the approach and level of effort needed to manage resources based on the type and of the project and the complexity of the project. A team charter defines the team values, agreements, and operating guidelines. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 81, Plan Resource Management. And if you want to check out the key concepts in the PMBOK Guide, page 142 for the team charter to look at that in more detail. And that's really, really great. Wow, we're doing a lot of stakeholder and team and resource things now. We're really getting through our project process. Great job. Michelle is planning a smart grid project at VEE, where the team have recently formed. Over the last 2 weeks, several conflicts have arisen, with some team members performing tasks that other team members feel they are responsible for. The team have just missed their first deliverable due date. What should Michelle do next? And I love this question because it's a real indication of the PMP exam. Something will be going wrong, and we have to use our project skills to solve the problem. And it's scenario-based, like a real-world scenario. So this is really, really good. Now, this does sound like the Tuckman model. Do you know what the Tuckman model is? It's forming, storming, norming, performing, and then when we're closing the project, we're adjourning. But this is the stages that we go through as a team before we find our rhythm and start working together and really becoming a high-performing team. And it really seems like they're in the storming stage. But is that something that Michelle is going to do? I don't think so. So it's close, but let's put a no. Do we review and update the project schedule with the new due date? Yes, we may have to do that. So let's put that as a maybe. Do we workshop the RBS with the team? Do you know what the RBS is? It's the resource breakdown structure. Now, this shows the hierarchy of the team, and it basically shows us where everyone fits within the team. But I don't think that's going to solve the real cause of the problem, so let's put that as a no. And workshop an RAM, or responsibility assignment matrix, with the team. The most common version of this is a RACI, who's responsible, accountable, consulted, and who is informed. This gives us our roles and responsibilities, what each person or each role is going to deliver on our project. In other words, what they're responsible for. So this is going to solve the root cause of our problem here. Let's go with answer A. Excellent. A responsibility assignment matrix shows project resources assigned to work packages, linking activities with team members. A RACI matrix is a common example, and as we said, responsibility, accountable, consulted, and informed. Very, very handy to do that when you're first starting out on your project, and also to keep it updated as we're going along. Maybe review it every now and again. Page 81 in the PMBOK Guide, 8th edition, Plan Resource Management, and page 194 under Responsibility Assignment Matrix. So that's very handy to know. How did you go with that one? Now we're starting to get into some really good stuff. Claire is leading a reporting workstream at Iron Peak Consulting. She notices that many small tasks that should only take a few hours were given weeks to complete. Now the budget is becoming strained due to unforeseen additional scope in these tasks. Claire knows she needs to limit the time available for these tasks, applying. Now, what does this sound like to you? Have you covered this in your PMP course or your PMP education? Because if something should only take a small amount of time, but we give it a large amount of time, and then it gets additional scope, the scope increases due to having that extra time. Has this ever happened to you on your project or in the real world? And now we've all got all this extra stuff that we've delivered just because we had all this extra time to fill. We call this Parkinson's Law. And so that's a really good one to know. Schedule compression, we're not going to use that to limit the time available. So that's a no. Resource leveling is when we're taking people who are assigned to the same tasks, is when we're taking people that are assigned to the same tasks at the same time, and then we're just leveling that out so they're not assigned at the same time, because we can't have the same person doing two tasks at the same time, if that makes sense. And fast tracking is when we've got activities done in sequence and we put them in parallel or doing them at the same time instead. So that's a way of compressing the schedule. Anyway, all of that to say, so we've got a bit more information, which is really nice. Let's go with letter C, Parkinson's Law. Organizational theory explains how people, teams, and units behave, helping improve planning efficiency. It supports flexible leadership based on team maturity and highlights how organizational structure and culture influence the project's culture and structure. So that's good to know. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 81, Plan Resource Management, and page 184 under Organizational Theory. And this is just how we use management and work with our team to get the best results. It's a really, really good thing to go through, organizational theory. How did you go with that one? Let's get into the next question. Richard is estimating resource needs for a nationwide telecom rollout at Northwest Communications. Multiple combinations of crews, equipment, and timelines are possible, creating difficulty in identifying the most efficient allocation. Which technique would be best to address this situation? So we've got lots of different timelines that are possible, and we can't identify the most efficient allocation. We might need some help from our friend artificial intelligence, or at the very least, a computer system to help us figure this out. So analogous estimating isn't going to do it, but do you know what that is? It's when we estimate the items using an analogy. So it's a similar feature or a similar project. Very handy. Genetic algorithms. Okay. This is a new term in the PMBOK Guide. It's an AI term. Genetic algorithms, it's like natural selection. So we have lots of different timelines that are possible, and then we rank them against the criteria, so the optimal criteria for our schedule, when we want to have our schedule done by. Now, only some of these will make it through that ranking, and they go to the next phase. And then only some of these will make it to the next phase. So it's like natural selection in the real world. It's like a genetic algorithm. Ultimately, only one or two, or mostly one, will be the best option for the criteria that we select. And that's how we do it. Bottom-up estimating is where we add up all of the work packages to get an overall project duration or schedule and conduct expert judgment sessions. We always want to do that. We want to get the expertise of our team who are doing the work. So that's a pretty good answer as well, but let's go with answer B. Genetic algorithms are an optimization technique inspired by natural selection. Well, that's very handy to know. And they iteratively explore solution combinations without bias and can be used in project scheduling and resource management for resolving conflicts. Really good. So there's a few new AI terms, and that's one of them. So that's very handy to know. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 82, estimate resources, and page 171 under genetic algorithms. That was such an interesting one to go through. Now, you haven't seen that in previous project management bodies of knowledge. So that's a new term. Really good. At North Shore Grid Corporation, you're finalizing planning for a substation upgrade project. After defining scope and sequencing activities, you determine the types and quantities of resources required to deliver each work package. What will you do next? So we've defined the scope and sequenced activities, and we've got the quantities of resources required for each work package. Okay, do we prepare the project resource calendar? I don't think that's going to be the best one. Do we do something with the schedule, maybe? Develop the responsibility assignment matrix? Update the work breakdown structure? Well, that one is already done, so we could put that as a no. Develop the responsibility assignment matrix? That's a maybe. We're doing roles and responsibilities and making sure that that matches up with the team. And then create a resource breakdown structure. That's also a good answer, but I think what we're looking at here is a process, and it's the process of estimating the resources, potentially, for each work package. Now, what are we going to do as part of that? So responsibility assignment matrix is a pretty good answer, but an output of that process is the resource breakdown structure. Once we have our resources, we want to actually show them in that RBS so we can see where everyone fits in the project team, or all the materials or all the resources. So that's a definite one. I think the other ones are decent answers, but not quite it. Let's go with answer D. Okay, that was pretty lucky. Estimate resources identifies the type, quantity, and characteristics of resources required, and a resource breakdown structure is a hierarchical representation of resources by category and type. That is one of the outputs of estimate resources. So that's actually pretty good to know. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 82, estimate resources, and page 132 under the resource breakdown structure. That one was a lot more tricky than the previous questions. So that's good to know, and also a really nice way to do it because the PMP questions will be that tricky in many cases. At CE Group, progress stalls when two department leads argue over the release of key specialists assigned to your project. Each insists their internal deadlines take priority, creating tension and uncertainty around when the resources can actually join your team. What should be the most appropriate action for the project manager? Do we adjust the project schedule baseline to reflect limited resource access? Well, we may need to do that, but is there something we can do first, and can we do something that solves the root cause of this issue? So let's put a no for now. Do we review and use resource calendars to determine availability and negotiate a realistic allocation? Well, negotiation, working together with people, I think that sounds quite promising. Let's put that as a high maybe for now. Request additional budget to hire external resources and avoid internal conflict. Ideally, we want to avoid requesting extra money or extra resources when we can help it. So let's put that as a no. And revise the stakeholder engagement plan to address functional manager concerns. Again, we may do that, but maybe a little bit later. The most direct and collaborative way forward, I think, is going to be answer B. Let's go with that one. There it is. The key benefit of acquire resources is that it guides the selection and assignment of resources to activities. A resource calendar identifies working days, shifts, business hours, weekends, and it's an output of the acquire resources process. Wow. So we really are getting into the processes and inputs and outputs of those processes in the PMBOK guide under page 82 to 84, acquire resources, and page 132, resource calendar. How did you go with that one? All right, there's only a few questions to go, so let's see what we've got coming up next. Midway through execution, several team members begin voicing frustration that their concerns are dismissed and obstacles remain unresolved. Some blame other team members for underperforming as the work stalls. What should the project manager do to improve the situation? Do we reassign underperforming team members to maintain delivery timelines? Well, again, we may want to do this, but is that going to be direct? Maybe. Is it being collaborative? Probably not as much. So let's put that as a low maybe. Update the resource management plan with team assessment results. Again, direct and collaborative? Probably not. Let's put that as a no. Increase reporting frequency to track progress more closely. We can track that progress and that is good. Is it being direct? Probably not as much. So we want to really go and try and solve the root cause of the problem using active listening and removing impediments or removing blockers is probably where we're going to go. That's really more direct and collaborative. So that really does fit what we're after. And that's just a good test. Those two words, it's so simple. So let's go with answer D. And that's the one. Lead the team involves applying knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to manage and lead the team, improving competencies, interactions, and the team environment to enhance performance. And servant leadership focuses on understanding and supporting the team needs. That's in the PMBOK guide, 8th edition, page 84 to 85, lead the team, and page 197 under servant leadership. And we've got so much stakeholder and team things, so we're definitely going into the resources section of the PMBOK guide. Very handy to know, and we're going to get a lot of questions around that on the PMP exam. Just 2 questions to go in this section, so you're doing a great job. Let's keep going. Dylan is leading a software delivery project at Quantum Leap Systems. The team completes iterations, but recurring issues in collaboration and workflow continue to slow progress, and the team have not delivered anything usable in some time. What should Dylan do next? So we've got some iterations here, potentially an adaptive way of working. Do we perform team assessments? So again, team assessments will check on how the team is performing. Are they doing their job according to what we want? We could do that, but is that going to be like a nice servant leadership way of working? Probably not. So let's put that as a maybe. Do we facilitate daily stand-up meetings with the team? That could help the team raise blockers as they go. So that could be a good answer as well. Do we conduct a retrospective with the team? Now, a retrospective is where we come together and we say, hey, what's working well, what's not working well, and what do we want to improve, and what still puzzles us, and what did we learn as well. So a few things, and we do all of those, we ask all those questions to improve our process, our ways of working over time. And we can hold a retrospective any time that the work is slowing or we haven't delivered something in some time. That's actually from the Agile Practice Guide. I do remember that. I think that's actually a pretty good answer. So the last one is invite real system users to the sprint planning session. We do want to be doing that. Oh no, not to the sprint planning session, to the sprint review. We invite stakeholders to the sprint review, but I don't think that's a good answer at all, answer D. So let's go with answer C. Wonderful stuff. A retrospective is a recurring workshop where participants review work and results to improve process and the product. Page 85 in the PMBOK guide, 8th edition, lead the team, and page 194 if you want to go to retrospectives as a key concept directly. And we're also up to the last question, so great job in getting through these. Louise is leading a global software integration project at SG Tech. Team members across regions have worked through various conflicts, improved their skills, and are starting to trust each other. However, they currently wait for her direction before making decisions, slowing progress and creating bottlenecks. What will Louise do next? So we've got a team and they're starting to move into a high-performing team, but they're being slowed down by one person needing to make all the decisions. So what can we do here? I think this is going to be pretty obvious. Do we use autocratic decision-making, That's where we've got just one person. We're already doing that, so let's put that as a no. Do we apply distributed management with the team? That is where we're heading. That's where the team can make decisions on their own ways of working. It's also called self-managing in an agile team. So that's actually pretty good to know. I think that's going to be our answer. Do we increase stand-ups and reporting frequency? Well, that might bog us down in more admin, and so it's really not going to solve the problem. Do we use servant leadership with the team? That sounds nice, and it's actually a pretty good answer in general, but distributed management is going to be better in this case because they're high performing, they already have the skills, they can make the decisions. We need to get rid of some of those bottlenecks. So let's go with answer B. Wonderful. Distributed management and leadership decentralizes decision-making and authority across team members, emphasizing teamwork and empowerment. And it reduces that reliance on a single project manager, which is also very, very handy. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 85, lead the team, and page 168, distributed management and leadership. And great job in getting through these questions. It's a lot of work, but with every question that you're answering and every part of the PMBOK guide that we're going through, you're learning more and more, and I truly believe that you will pass your PMP with all of this wonderful knowledge that you're gaining. Keep going and keep improving. Brian is leading a data migration project at Zendu Systems, where team members have recently come together. They challenge each other's approaches, disagreements slow progress, and priorities are frequently debated. Which stage is the team currently experiencing? And we know this is Tuckman's ladder, or the Tuckman model. And it goes through forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning once we finish our project. But when we come together, we've still got individual roles. When we go through storming, there's a little bit of conflict. We're trying to find our place in the team. We're trying to figure out if we can trust each other to do the work. When we go into norming, that's when we do find our rhythm, and performing is when we really know our roles really well and we can trust each other very well. We're delivering quickly and in nice ways, teams working together. So this sounds like storming to me. Let's go with answer B. Storming is a phase where the team begins addressing the project work, technical decisions, and project management approach. If members are not collaborative or open to differing perspectives, the environment can become counterproductive and hinder team performance. And just a note, we need to work through those conflicts in order to get into norming. And we can do that by workshopping the team charter or looking at our roles and responsibilities with a RACI or a responsibility assignment matrix, and just problem solving these things, removing blockers for the team. That will help us move into that norming and performing stage. A great one to kick off, so quite nice. Let's see what we've got next. You're managing a software development project at Kendra Labs. The team is distributed across different departments within the same building. Okay, and using video conferencing to collaborate. Recently, there have been some misunderstandings about requirements, and the team are taking too long to learn the new system. What are we going to do next? So we're actually in the same building, but we're distributed across different departments. Do we conduct team building sessions? Is that going to solve the problem? Probably not directly. Do we increase the frequency of meetings? Again, more meetings isn't always the answer. We want to address the root cause. So let's say as a no. Create a thorough requirements documentation. That could work, but we need to collaborate as well. I think the answer here is we want to actually co-locate the team. We're in the same building anyway, and when we're together, we get the benefits of osmosis. We get all of those wonderful conversations and information happening in the background as the team works together, and we're learning just by those things happening around us. Let's go with answer A. Excellent. Co-location is an organizational strategy where team members are physically located to improve communication, relationships, and productivity. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 85, lead the team, and page 151 and 152 for co-location. Now that is a great thing to know, and we typically use that in an agile team, so a good thing to go through. Let's see what we've got next. At Altura Construction Group, Sydney is managing a commercial building project. A key stakeholder becomes resistant after missing several important updates about project progress. They're unable to attend key meetings, and they don't read emailed reports. What will Sydney do in this situation? So they can't come to the meetings, they don't read the emailed reports. What is an emailed report? That is us pushing information to our stakeholders. So do we want to use an interactive communication approach? That's where we're getting feedback and having a two-way communication. That could work. Do we apply a push communication approach? Well, we're already doing that, so let's put that as a no. Do we use a pull communication approach? This actually could work. Pull communication is where we have all of our information in a repository, like a web portal or a web page or an intranet, and then the stakeholders can gather that information at their own discretion. So they don't have to wait and they don't need an email, especially if they can't read those emails. So that could work. Do we update the stakeholder engagement plan to reflect these updates? We might do this, or we might use our communications management plan instead. So let's put that as a no. I think out of these two, let's go with a pull communication approach. Answer C. Wonderful stuff. Monitor and control resourcing as a process ensures assigned physical or virtual resources are available as planned. And pull communications are used for large or complex information, requiring recipients to access content through portals or repositories. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 87, Monitor and Control Resourcing, and page 152, Communication Methods. Now, we're still going through so much stakeholder and resources in our project management process, so this is really, really good. Let's see what we've got coming up next. Taylor, the project manager at Summit Build, hears different views from the team leads during a nationwide rollout. Some say certain resources are not performing well, reporting issues and defects, while others believe the performance is fine. This makes it unclear whether any action is needed. What should Taylor do? Should she increase supervision of both teams to closely track their outputs? Well, we could do that. What's going to fix the root cause here? So reporting issues, some people think that it's good, some people think that it's bad. We're not sure if we actually need any action in the first place. So that could work. Do we perform a root cause analysis to investigate the issue? That could also work, but what is the issue that we're investigating? Maybe we're not really sure yet because some people think that it's actually fine. Let's put that as a low maybe for that one. Adjust the schedule to account for upcoming inefficiencies. Yes, we may need to do that, but is that going to solve the root cause of the problem? Well, again, let's put that as a low maybe. So 2 low maybes, 1 maybe. The last one is use control charts to review performance trends. Well, this could actually help us see if things are performing well or are not performing well. This could actually help us get the real information. So maybe if we do that, that's probably going to be better than just increasing the supervision. This way we can get that information, review the trends, then we can perform root cause analysis after that. So I think the first thing we're going to do, let's do answer D. Okay, monitor and control resourcing ensures that assigned physical or virtual resources are available as planned, and control charts are used to determine whether a process is stable and performing predictably. So that is good information. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 87, monitor and control resourcing, and page 158 for control charts, if you want to check that out as a key concept in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition. Now, we're getting through these questions. You're doing a really, really good job. And they're also a little bit tricky. So these ones are quite a good indication of the PMP exam, which is nice. At VL Systems, Cameron, the project manager, notices some future threats or impacts being raised by stakeholders within the team. There is no clear agreement on how risks will be identified, analyzed, or monitored, and planning activities are beginning to slow due to the uncertainty in decision making. What should Cameron do next? So, no clear agreement on how risks will be identified. This sounds like a process to me. So remember, our processes are our plans. And I can see develop the risk management plan. That actually sounds like a pretty good answer. Let's see what the others are just in case. Do we brainstorm risks with the project team and add them to the risk register? Well, we are going to do that, but we need to figure out how we're going to do all these things first. So let's put that as a no. Perform qualitative risk analysis to prioritize the risks. Again, we will do that, but that's not part of our process or how we're going to do these things. Plan risk responses to reduce the uncertainty. Same thing with this. It's going to be part of our process, but the process itself is the risk management plan. Let's go with answer B. Wonderful stuff. Now that risk management plan defines how to conduct risk management activities for a project. The process should begin when a project is started or conceived and should be completed early in the project. So we really want to get this started and plan out our process. And that risk management plan goes up into the project management plan as we collate all of our plans together. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 95 and 96, Plan Risk Management, and page 134, Risk Management Plan. Now that's really, really good. And I think risk is one of the later processes actually in the PMBOK Guide. So we're starting to get to the end of these, which is great. You're doing a great job. Let's keep going. While you're working as a project manager at Apex Nova Solutions, during a workshop, the team identifies several potential events that could negatively affect the project. Sounds like a risk to me. Some team members want to move on to delivery as quickly as possible, while others are worried about the impact of said events. What should you do next? Do we document the risk responses for the events? Well, we need to put the risks and brainstorm the risks first. So let's put a no. Review the threats at the stage gate review. I think we need to gather them first. So let's put that as a no. And we really want to manage them as a project manager instead of raising them with our steering committee or with the stage gate review. So let's put that as a no. Conduct a risk audit. Remember what audits are used for? They're for our process. So is our process performing the way it needs to? Is it done the way that the organization needs it to be done? That's a risk audit, but for our purposes, that's a no. We want to develop the risk register so we can place all of those wonderful risks in there and capture them and keep them under control and monitor them as we go through our project. Let's go with answer D. Great stuff. Identifying risks involves recognizing positive and negative risks and distinguishing them from issues. It is iterative, so we're always going to be sort of capturing risks and adjusting it over the life cycle of our project. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 96 and 97, identify risks, and page 137 for the risk register. Great job, you're doing well. Let's keep going, and we're in the last couple of questions for this section. Ryan is planning a logistics optimization project at HLT. He wants to get ahead of any impacts that could arise over the life of his project, but the team is new to the industry and will need more of a structured approach. What will Ryan do next? So how do we have a structured approach to brainstorming risks? This is quite a good one. Do we conduct a brainstorming session with the team? Yes, we are going to do that, but we want a structured approach. So let's put that one as a low maybe. Do we develop the risk register? Yes, we do want to do that, and that will have some guidance for us, but is it going to help us brainstorm them specifically into different buckets? That's a no. Do we perform a risk audit? Remember, that's looking at the process, so that's a no. Now, a SWOT analysis, that's looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to our project delivery. So that's a great way to structure the brainstorming of our risks with our team. Let's go with answer D. Excellent. And here it is, as we can see, weaknesses and opportunities and threats to identify those risks. It looks at how the strengths may offset the threats and whether the weaknesses could limit our opportunities. This is from the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 97, identify risks as our process, and page 204 for SWOT analysis. And that is a good way to brainstorm and put those into buckets, especially if we have a new team. So very, very nice to know. Last 3 questions in this section. Let's keep going. During planning adventure innovations, the project team identifies several risks that could impact cost, schedule, and quality. Due to limited budget, not all risks can be addressed at the same time. What should the project manager do next? Do we need to prioritize them? I think probably would be good. So do we develop the risk register? Well, maybe not the best answer. Do we plan the risk responses? Again, do we have something here that prioritizes? Perform sensitivity analysis. That's a quantitative way to measure risk. So that's with a little bit more data. That could work, but I think the best answer here is perform qualitative risk analysis. This is where we look at the impact and we look at the likelihood as well, and then we prioritize those risks that have the highest likelihood and the highest impact on our project or our product. So let's go with qualitative risk analysis, answer C. Wonderful. Now, this is an iterative process combining qualitative and quantitative analysis. That's for perform risk analysis as the process. And qualitative risk analysis evaluates risks by probability impact and other characteristics if we want. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 96 and 98, under Perform Risk Analysis. That's great to go into. A good way because we will see a lot of risk questions on the PMP exam. It's a big part of project management. Last two questions in this section. Great job. Andre, the project manager at Blue Peak Telecom, identifies a risk that could delay a key deliverable. The team has different views on how to handle it. The risk cannot be fully removed, but its likelihood or impact can be reduced with the right actions. What should Andre do? Now, this is for risk mitigation or risk responses, and mitigation is when we reduce the likelihood or impact of the risk. Transferring the risk is when we transfer it through insurance or to a contractor to do the work, and then they take on the risk. Accepting the risk is not taking any action at all, and implementing a contingency reserve is giving us a budget to deal with those risks in the future. But reducing the likelihood and impact is mitigating the risk. Let's go with answer A. Wonderful. Plan risk responses develops options, selects strategies, and agrees on actions to address overall and individual project risks. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 96 and 97 and 99, plan risk responses, and page 203 for strategies for threats. And these are a few of the different strategies that we'll come across. Escalate is another one if it's outside of our control. That can go up to a management team or a project sponsor. So a few different ways to respond to threats or risks on our project. Okay, we're up to the last question in this section. Great job for working through these. You're doing so well. Let's see what we've got and get these done. At Silverline Infrastructure Group, Lorna is executing a highway expansion project. A planned response to a major risk requires additional work and impacts both the timeline and the budget. The team is ready to proceed. What should Lorna do next? Okay, should she adjust the project schedule and the budget? Yes, that does sound like something that we're going to need to do. So it impacts the timeline and the budget, and we already know that risk needs a risk response that has additional work. So we're probably going to need to do this. Let's put that as a high maybe. Implement the planned response to the major risk. We probably will need to do that as well. That is also a good answer, but I can see where this is going because submit a change request. That is probably what we're going to need to do. Let's check the last one just in case. Communicate the risk to the project stakeholders. So this really is the change control process. First, we submit the change request. Then we figure out the impacts. Then we are going to implement the planned response and communicate that to the project stakeholders and adjust the project schedule. But first, let's do the change request. So let's go with answer C. Okay, that is good to know. Implement risk responses ensures agreed risk response plans are executed to address overall project risk and minimize threats. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 98 and 100 for implement risk responses, and page 116 for change requests if you want more information on that directly. And I feel like we're gathering more information as we go through these questions that are matched to the PMBOK Guide. Great job for learning all of these wonderful things. It's such a great skill to have, and it's really going to help you in your career as you deliver value and deliver change and do wonderful things for your organization It's the kind of thing and the kind of information that gets you a pay rise in your organization, which is really, really great. So I truly believe that doing this will help you pass your PMP. Rachel is monitoring risks on a warehouse automation project at HT Authority. Several identified risks have recently occurred, costing the project a significant amount. Rachel meets with the project sponsor, who asks if the project is on track and whether they have enough to cover the remaining risk responses. What should Rachel do? Do we review the risk register for the remaining risks? Well, we need to know if we have enough money or enough resources to cover the risk responses. And for that, what we're going to do is look at the contingency reserve. That is the reserve that shows our money that's allocated for risk responses. And we can do that with reserve analysis. That's probably going to be the one that we're after. A risk audit is for our processes, and conduct a project risk assessment is brainstorming and identifying risks. So none of these really match as well as answer B. Great. Monitor risks, tracks risk response implementation, identified risks and new risks, and evaluates response effectiveness throughout the project. Reserve analysis evaluates remaining risk and determines whether schedule or budget reserves are sufficient for the project. So that's really great. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 98 and 100 under Monitor Risks, and page 192 under Reserve Analysis. And for our project management body of knowledge, it really goes from page 1 to 100 for the process, and then from around page 100 to 110, that's where we start to get our key concepts. So we've actually been through a lot of those key concepts, if not all of the ones that we need to know already, just alongside the process as we were going through that. So we've effectively been through the entire project management body of knowledge. Well done and congratulations. Now there are 9 more questions here as just a bonus to fill out some gaps in some of these key concepts. So let's make sure we know everything we need to know. Let's do the next question. Evelyn has just taken over as project manager for a digital transformation project at SBG, but there are concerns about whether the initiative will deliver the expected business value after rollout. Evelyn needs to know who is getting value from the project. What will she do next? Does she review the business case? Or, again, I think we've been through some similar things here. The benefits management plan is going to show us what the benefits are, who's going to measure those benefits, and who gets those benefits in the organization. So I think it's probably going to be this one. Review the stakeholder classification. Remember, that one is our impact and influence, and we want to engage the people with the highest impact and the highest influence over our project. And cost-benefit analysis is a nice way to prioritize things, but it's not as useful for us here. Let's go with answer D. Wonderful. The benefits management plan describes how project benefits will be created, maximized, and sustained. And that's page 115 in the Benefits Management Plan, PMBOK Guide, 8th edition. Now, these are some great ways to fill out the last bits of our information. Paige is managing a medical device project at Synapse Biotech. Multiple versions of design documents are being used by different teams, causing inconsistencies and rework. Changes are not clearly tracked or controlled. Paige wants to establish control over versions and ensure proper handling of updates. Which approach should she use? Now remember, with versions and version control, that is when we use our configuration management plan. The change management plan is for our change management process. So it's the process that we're going to go through for noting things in the change log and having those changes approved. But for looking at baselined items and looking at versions, that's going to be configuration management. The scope management plan is our process for managing scope, and create and update the change log itself. Well, that's nothing to do with our process. That's just one of the things that we'll do in the process. So let's go with answer A. Excellent. Now this defines procedures to track project artifacts and control changes. For example, version control. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 118, configuration management plan. Another good one to know. And we're really working our way through this last set of questions. So you're doing a great job. Keep going. Chloe is facilitating a requirements workshop at NR Group. The session produces a large set of ideas from multiple stakeholders, making it difficult to identify patterns and move forward. What will Chloe do next? And anytime we want to take lots of ideas and make them easier to see and put them into buckets that have similarities or an affinity to each other, we're going to use an affinity diagram. So we've got all these ideas and we can put some ideas in this bucket, some ideas in this bucket, and now they're much easier to manage. We could conduct interviews, but that will take a little bit longer. We could use the nominal group technique that will prioritize some things, but that's best when we need an anonymous approach to make sure that we aren't influenced by the highest paid person in the room. And we could also just use brainstorming with the team, but the best answer here, I think, is answer D. And there it is. Page 145 in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition under Affinity Diagram, this shows large numbers of ideas can be classified into groups. And that's very handy when we're eliciting and analyzing requirements with our project team and our stakeholders. Wonderful stuff. All right, let's see what we've got next. Nathan has joined a large aerospace project at WS Dynamics. As a new project manager, he's unfamiliar with internal departments and reporting lines. Key stakeholders are being missed, affecting coordination. What should Nathan do next? So we want to find stakeholders, and he's unfamiliar with the internal departments. Now, in order to find stakeholders in an organization and become familiar with an organization's stakeholder chart, we're going to use an organizational breakdown structure or an organizational chart. That's our OBS. Anytime you hear breakdown structure, that's something being decomposed, like a work breakdown structure, a product breakdown structure, a resource breakdown structure for our project team, but this one is for the organization. So that's really what we need if we're unfamiliar with the internal departments. We could create a stakeholder register, we could develop the communications management plan, but really we want to find our way around the organization first. And we could also conduct stakeholder interviews. All of those are good answers. Let's go with answer C. Excellent. An OBS is a hierarchical representation of the project organization showing relationships between activities and organizational units. Page 171 in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition under Organizational Breakdown Structure. How did you go with that one? These ones we're getting through pretty quickly because we know a lot of this stuff by now, all of the things that we've learned going through the PMBOK Guide. Megan is scheduling a retail store renovation at Sideline Interiors. Flooring installation must wait until painting is fully completed, but furniture assembly can begin once painting has started. Megan needs to define these relationships to avoid delays and rework. Which sequence best reflects this situation? Okay, this is our precedence diagramming method. Okay, and we have flooring installation must wait until painting is fully completed. So painting can be finished and flooring installation can then start. So that's a finish to start. And then furniture assembly can begin. Furniture assembly can begin once painting has started. So painting is starting and furniture assembly is also starting. So start to start relationship. So have we got this here? Finish to start? Yep. Finish to start and start to start. That's this one. So let's go with answer A. That's precedence diagramming. And that constructs a schedule model using nodes to represent activities and logical relationships to show the sequence on our schedule. It includes dependencies such as finish to start or finish to finish, defining how predecessor and successor activities are linked during our schedule. So that's really, really great. PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 185, precedence diagramming method. I really like that one. So learning a few things as we go through these last questions in the PMBOK Guide. Adrian is evaluating vendor proposals for a project. Stakeholders disagree on which supplier to choose, citing different priorities such as cost, experience, and technical capability. The current proposals are vastly different as a result and difficult to compare. What will Adrian do next? Should he perform a make or buy analysis? I think we need to compare things, so maybe but let's put that as a low maybe. Conduct a bidder conference. That's where we get all of our sellers together to get them on the same page. So that's going to be a no. Define the source selection criteria. So that is all of the different priorities. So we'll define those things so that our proposals can be more similar to each other as we get them from our vendors. I think that's going to be what we want. Develop a procurement management plan. That's our procurement process. But for our purposes here, this is more direct. Let's go with answer C. Excellent. The source selection criteria evaluate proposals to ensure the best quality and value, including capability, cost, delivery, expertise, and experience. And that's in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition, page 249 to 250, source selection criteria. This is actually in the end of the PMBOK Guide. It's in the appendix, and this is where we look at procurements in more detail. So they've taken out procurements. It used to be part of the processes. Now it's just in the appendix, but it's the same information. All right, only a few questions to go. You're doing a great job. Sophie is managing a highway construction project at Delta Core Infrastructure. A contractor submits a claim for additional costs due to unexpected site conditions. Both parties want to resolve the issue quickly without involving external parties or delaying progress. What should Sophie do? Now, in this case, we're working with a vendor, so it's part of the procurement process. And the first step is to work directly with the vendor and try and get an outcome that way. So do we engage a mediator? Well, that's going to be a third party. We're not at that stage yet. Do we initiate negotiation with the contractor? Yes, we work with them directly and try and get an outcome. So that's going to be good. Do we refer the claim to arbitration? Again, that's later on down the track. So that's a no. And document the claim and update the issue log. Oh, that's actually a good one as well. Which one are we going to do that's going to solve the problem the most? I think if we're being the most direct and collaborative, we're really going to negotiate and work directly with the contractor to try and resolve this without delaying progress. Let's go with answer B. Okay, pretty tricky one, this one. Negotiation involves direct discussions between parties to resolve disputes without third-party intervention. And negotiation is the first step in resolving a procurement dispute, followed by mediation, arbitration, dispute review boards, and litigation. Page 252 and 253 for claims administration in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition. So that's some good information about how we manage vendors and claims, which is going to be really important as we go through our PMP exam. 2 questions to go. Well done. Let's get these done. Carlos is managing an e-commerce platform upgrade at VR Systems. Stakeholders continue requesting small feature additions during development, which the team implements without formal review. Timelines are slipping and costs are increasing. Carlos needs to identify what is causing this situation. Okay, is it a root cause here? What is happening on the project? Now, I would have said that we need to do some root cause analysis, but is this just, do we need to say what's happening? That's all we need to do. So is it scope validation that's being performed without proper stakeholder approval? Well, we don't know what the process is, so that's a maybe. Let's put that as a maybe for now. The change control process is being bypassed. Again, what is the change control process? We need to know that. We would solve that with root cause analysis or problem solving with the team. So let's put that as a maybe as well. I think this is what we're after here. So gold plating and scope creep. Gold plating is where we add extra features to what we're delivering that the customer did not ask for. So is that in here? I don't think that's it. I think stakeholders are actually requesting this. So it's not gold plating. Scope creep is when stakeholders request extra features or small feature additions, and it just creeps upwards ever so slightly and on a continuous basis until it becomes a large issue. So this one, I think, is scope creep, answer D. There it is. Scope creep is the uncontrolled expansion of product or project scope without corresponding adjustments to time, cost, or resources. Page 273 in the PMBOK Guide 8th edition under scope creep. Really good to know. And also good to know is we're up to the last question. Great job. You guys made it. Let's do this one. And we've got some numbers here. So maybe it's a bit of mathematics. A great way to finish off. Let's see what we've got. Matteo is reviewing several system upgrade proposals. Each option requires a different investment and delivers varying financial returns. So the project sponsor would like to prioritize using return on investment. And we've got proposal A, 45, proposal B, 90%, proposal C, 135%, and proposal D, 110% return on investment. Now, the trick here, and with most of our prioritizing methods, is to choose the highest one. So for return on investment, we just want the highest, and that's proposal C. It'd be the same for the net present value. It'd be the same for the internal rate of return, and it's the same for the benefit to cost ratio. The only one that's different is the payback period, because we want our costs to be paid back in a shorter or a smaller amount of time. So let's go with answer C. And there it is. Return on investment is calculated as net gain divided by investment multiplied by 100. The higher ROI, the better. And also the higher questions that we've been through, the better. You made it to the 110th question, and we've been through the entire Project Management Body of Knowledge 8th edition as a result. Well done on getting through this. This is really going to help you pass your PMP and get used to the style of PMP questions that you'll see on the exam. Everything that you've done here is going to help your career, help you deliver value, and by doing this, I truly believe that you will pass your PMP exam. I know you can do it, and you're putting in the work, so great job. Keep going, and I'll see you in the next video.